We're going to go through the approval of the agenda, the pledge, announcements, and then we'll get to the consent agenda. And I have one announcement to make. Okay. So, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? No, you did that. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
I don't vote.
Okay. So the agenda has been approved. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to let
Yes.
the folks know that our normal chair, Jessica, is a little bit under the weather. That's why she's not here today. So our vice chair is going to be leading us fearlessly on tonight.
Fearlessly is the key word. All right, patience from you all. The one announcement also that has to be made now is that Jessica is not planning to continue to chair the meetings. And so at the next meeting that we have, we will have to elect a new chair and assistant vice chair. But that'll be at the next meeting.
And Madam Chair, that would be for the HARB and for the P&Z.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the HARB and the P&Z, right? Everybody's got that? Okay. All right, where are we now? One.
And announcements, yes, everybody else.
Anyone else have any announcements?
Public announcements.
Hmm?
Public announcements.
Any public announcements? No one? Don't see any.
And then we don't have a conversation on the consent agenda. She just asked for a motion to approve.
All right, we need a motion to approve on the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
All for it?
Aye.
Aye. Is this quasi-judicial? Judicial?
So we'll go into our public hearings and ordinances. The first one's quasi-judicial.
Oh, I see it written there now.
You have the quasi, it's in my drawer here.
You don't have,
There you go. I have no candy, but I have quasi-judicial.
okay, so we have a request to alter the exterior of a building within the Newberry Historic District. This will be a quasi-judicial resolution CA 202101, application CA 2101, a request by Lee and Casey Mason, owners, for a certificate of appropriateness to allow alteration of the exterior of a building, Archangel Gunsmithing and Outfitters at 25720 Newberry, West Newberry Road, tax parcel number 02163-002-000, located within the Newberry Historic District. So the city attorney, did I just read the ordinance in, Scott?
I'm happy to, Madam Chair. I'll read the title of this is the HARB CA 2021-01 for Lee and Casey Mason, the owners, for the certificate of appropriateness. Madam Chair, this is a resolution of the Historic Architectural Review Board of the City of Newberry, Florida, for approval of a certificate of appropriateness as authorized under sections 11.11 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for alterations visible to the public affecting the outside exterior of the building designated in the historic district by the provisions of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, as located at 25720 West Newberry Road. Tax parcel number is 02163-002-000 within the Newberry City Historic District, repealing all resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time is to pass resolution number HARB-CA 2021-01.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask for ex parte, and then this. All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence on record. Janine, will you?
Let's do ex parte first. Since she already announced it, so just ask Joe. Do you have anything to disclose?
Does anyone have anything to disclose?
Yes, I've had communications with Wendy, principal planner, this afternoon. I had several questions after going over the packet. And do you want me to discuss what question I asked her? Or? Okay.
Staff is fine. You can have communication with staff. Ex parte is if you've had any communication with the applicant or anyone else trying to unduly influence you.
No, I haven't had any conversations with anybody except Wendy on this.
None.
No.
I have not. Now, Janine, will you please swear everybody in? You guys just have to be patient.
If everyone who is going to testify during the quasi-judicial hearing on Arcana's application would please raise their right hand
At this time, I'm going to read the presentation order.
and say, I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, and your name.
From here? That'll be Wendy, right?
But you have to read the presentation order before you testify.
And then go back?
Are you ready?
I am.
Not yet. I'm sorry.
Not yet. You guys sit back.
This time I'm going to go ahead and read the presentation order we're going to follow tonight.
Oh, okay. Mayor Marlowe is being very helpful. So I'm going to read the presentation order as what we're going to do. A is staff overview. B, the applicant present the application. There is no time limit. Staff report and recommendation, no time limit. Third party intervener, no time limit. Public comment, 3 minutes. Intervener representing 3 or more persons attending the meeting may speak for the group. An affidavit is required and limited to 5. The applicant may cross-examine. The party interveners may cross-examine. Staff may cross-examine. Members of the decision-making body through the chair may ask questions of the staff, the applicant, party interveners, and participants. Final argument may be made by the applicant, party interveners, and the staff related solely to the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing and introduced into the record. The city attorney will advise the decision-making body as to the applicable law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. Then we have deliberation of the application. After deliberations, a vote shall be taken to approve with conditions, continue, or to deny the application. All right, now the staff, please, your overview.
Good evening, Commissioners. Am I on the microphone yet? Okay, good. This application before you, as attorney and has been read into the record, is by Lee and Casey Mason. It's not working. Could you advance the slides for me, please? So that this is for the Archangel Gunsmithing and Outfitters building that's located on the corner of Northwest 257th Street and Newberry Road. Go to the next slide, please. As we said, it's located in the Newberry Historic District, and the next slide gives you a picture of that district, showing you the overall picture. So the next slide will give you a closer view into the property there on that corner. And the next slide. Okay, thank you. The proposal is for a 31 foot by 10 foot storage room addition, and it's to be located in the eastern rear portion of the building. And the proposed materials and colors are to match the existing building as it is. And this is just to add some storage that had been contemplated for some time when they first moved in there. And the proposal is to have the 26 gauge metal roofing just as it is there with the stainless steel color. The red brick masonry would be on the eastern wall and red block remaining walls in the rear. I may as well go ahead and go to the next slide, just so that I'll leave that up to you if you'd like. And I'll let the staff will relinquish the floor to the applicant. Thank you. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Lee Mason. I'm the owner of the Gunsmithing Archangel and Outfitters. The addition that you see here is for basically a space in the rear of the building that was basically just a concrete slab. And we are trying to expand it into a storage facility to give a perfect square of the entire building. So the entire building, that would be the finish of the entire building. Originally, there was a structure there at one time before, a long time ago, that was made previously from limestone that has deteriorated, and we've tried to upkeep that area of the building. That limestone goes from the exterior of the building to the interior of the building, similar to the exterior of City Hall. So we've tried to maintain that structure to keep it intact. So we're using the best available material we have to us now and modern capabilities to keep that intact, that side of the building. So that's the plan for what we have to plan on doing. I don't know if it goes to the next slide, but it shows a picture of on page 27.
They have that in your packet.
Okay, so on page, yeah, so so this is the finish. This is the finished, how it will be when it's finished. If you were to look at the exterior of the building there's only a brick section here, and then we are bricking in front of the limestone to allow that to be continuous brick there. And then the rear of the building is all previously block, which will be a red block to continue the veneer of the building. When it's finished, there's actually a wooden piece that goes across the top, that will be across the top of the building here, to cover in the soffit of the building, so that it will all be continuous as far as the framing and everything looking original along the side of the building. So on the other side of the building, it's just all block, so there's no brick on the other side of the building. So only the face of the building has brick, and only this side will have brick, as per original. So. I do want to.
Is it appropriate to ask any questions?
Not yet.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yeah, that's pretty much
So
everything.
now we're with the staff. That's where it is. Thank you.
So the recommendation of staff is based on that provision where you would have that brick, matching brick, the red brick, on the eastern wall, which is the wall that you see along 257th Street. So all of that will be matching what's existing there with the brick. And then on the rear, the way it's shaped, if you look at the site plan, see how the shape of the building at the rear, that on the back and around that part that's enclosed where you don't see that is all the block to match what's already there on the rear of the building, which is the block, red block, as opposed to red brick. So you've got like a cement block that's painted red that's already there in place, and it will match that in the back. So this just gives you a vision of what is there now on that east side, and it's, you see that wall, that's just their containing wall. But the next slide gives you the recommended action to adopt the resolution approving application CA 2101 with findings and conditions, and the findings being that it's the historic and architectural nature of the building will be enhanced and not adversely affected by the proposed alterations, and that it would be consistent with the city's land development regulations and comprehensive plan for historic properties, and it is consistent with the downtown and similar to the other properties. Conditions recommended are for the storage room addition to be placed as shown, with the eastern rear portion of the building being constructed with building materials and colors matching, and that the red brick be provided for. And this is not in your packet, so it's underlined to show you the change in the condition that's recommended, to specify that it's the red brick masonry for the eastern wall and then the red block for the rear walls on the north and west. Actually it's, yes, the north and west, but that will enclose that. The rest of it is that red block. So red brick on the east side, red block for the rest of the building, rest of that room. And that's staff's recommendation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them for you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, so that'll take us to public comment.
Okay. I can't ask her a question.
You can in a minute.
Okay.
You just gotta get through
Where are we at now?
public comment.
Oh, geez. Okay, public comments, 3 minutes. Okay.
Down here to G.
The applicant may cross-examine.
If there's anything the applicant disagrees with in staff's recommendation, now would be your time to express that. Okay.
And then there was no that, so, and staff doesn't want to do that, so.
That's gonna take us down here. Open the floor from there.
All right, now, members may ask questions of the staff, the applicant, intervener, or participants. So, does anybody have a question now? Go ahead.
Madam Chair, yes, I do have a question. I wanted to, first of all, I applaud the applicant using adaptive use of historic buildings and preserving them. I think that's excellent. We all appreciate that. One of the questions I had when you came up earlier, and I think Wendy has clarified, I wanted to make sure that you understood the difference in the sketch that we have in our packet. This particular, this will now be a brick, you're going to extend the brick veneer across this whole eastern facade. Is that correct?
So this will be the corner that's covered with the limestone. That's the limestone that I don't know if we can bring that picture back up again. Okay, so you see the limestone corner here?
Right.
Of the picture of the building? This is the limestone corner.
Right.
And then right down here is the water main.
Right.
Which is right here on the corner. And then this would be a pre-existing wall that would come down to a corner. You can't kind of see it in the picture there, but there's a corner on the building there.
Right.
And so this is basically what you will be looking at along the side of it.
Okay. What's in the resolution, though, says that whole face facing the street is going to be a brick veneer over that block. That's what the resolution or is stated. You stated everything on the east side that's facing the street.
Well, we'll need to make sure that it says, because what this request is for is the addition, so that the addition would be red brick to match. So if you're doing red brick just on the bottom, or are you doing red brick on the whole thing? On the addition.
The
east side.
red brick where the limestone was originally approved.
Right.
Yes.
In a previous
Right.
approval meeting.
Right.
The addition is the block to finish out the rear of the building, to make the rear of the building and coincide. The whole back of the building is that block.
But the whole east side of that block will be covered with brick.
Okay,
But,
so.
yeah, we didn't apply for
Well,
that.
but
Okay,
that's
then
what-
we'll need to revise that,
Yeah.
because, just to make sure that we're leaving it with the stone turret, with the limestone turret as it is, and you're just putting
Madam Chair.
brick on the east
Now,
side.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would, it sounds like there may be a little bit of confusion here between the applicant and our staff and what the resolution is and what has been discussed. Is there a time sensitivity here, or could we send you guys back to figure this out with staff about what you're actually asking? Because I thought it was you were going to be covering up that sandstone.
I'm trying to find where it says that on
Yeah, so the original approval was to cover the sandstone.
Is there a time sensitivity? Because I always hate
Well,
to
the
make,
the original one was approved.
you know, I'm saying,
Okay.
I hate for these guys to
Yeah.
make a decision when they're not clear on what is being proposed. So if there's no time sensitivity,
So this is.
and you
this
guys
is-
can go back and figure this out.
This resolution, this meeting is not about actually the brick covering the limestone. That was approved in the original part.
No.
I think when they wrote the new one, I think they added that to the new one, the staff part.
Okay,
I think
Wendy,
we
can you
spoke
come
of
up
that.
and,
So the only thing we applied for
Where
was
is the
this part.
limestone going?
the limestone is
Just
staying.
the
Okay.
block part.
So you're saying that, in other words, okay, so to clarify this,
Yeah.
the addition is really already there.
Yes.
The
Okay,
what?
so
I'm
that's
sorry, Wendy.
The addition to the building, in other words, to clarify, that the addition is where that limestone is and the brick that's already there,
That's.
that's the storage room.
Yes.
Okay, so
This-
we
this-
don't need the part about the
Yeah.
brick on the east, even though it was mentioned about the brick. We can take that out of the condition, and you can make that in your motion if you choose. So in other words, that wall stays the same? and
The same being, it'll all be brick?
Exactly as it looks now. It stays like that, with the original shirt that's already there, and the brick. That's the building. In other words, it's kind of like an after-the-fact enclosure.
I think, so, what y'all are saying is that the cinder block wall
Is what the.
is what you're going to enclose
Yes.
into a room,
Yes.
but the sandstone portion
It's just
is
covered.
just gonna stay the way it is.
Right.
The addition's gonna be covered in red brick, but the addition doesn't look like an addition because all it is
The
right
brick
now is a
will be
wall.
going up in front of the sandstone. That was what originally was approved in the original meeting.
I'm gonna ask the same question. If there's no time sensitivity, there seems to be some confusion here, and I'd like staff to go back and try to figure this out and give us a little bit clearer presentation, so.
Well, the reason I'm here again,
Yeah.
the reason I'm here again is that we had approval on the brick in our original meeting, okay? When way back, like 2 years ago, there was approval on that, okay? During the transition of COVID, there was some mix-up on the extended part, which is why you see the structure the way it is right now.
I
So
think Gavin may have a chance.
we're trying to get this part, just the block part.
But that's a building that's already there.
The-
You're not
the-
building a building.
Partially there.
So what he's
It's
asking
not finished,
for,
it's just a partial structure.
we've already approved the brick to cover the stone
Yeah.
that you see in those photos. He just hasn't completed that part of the construction. What the application is for is on the right-hand photo, the room that is built out with cinder block would be to complete that construction, put a roof on it, and paint the cinder block red to match the rest of the building.
Brick veneer.
So that's not how this is written, and I don't think, based on his sketch, I don't think he plans to cover the cinder block in brick. I think he just plans to paint it to match the rest of the building. Is that right?
Yes, the rear of the building is all block. There's no brick on the rear.
So what we're seeing in the photo, though, you're just gonna continue that cinder block up to the
Yes,
roof line and
like
then-
this with the door.
and paint it red, so you're not
Yes,
gonna
and paint
cover it with
red,
brick.
Yes, not cover it with
Right.
brick on this section.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question here?
Yes,
Okay, basically, when you're doing, an addition like this, you're correctly differentiating materials and textures so it doesn't look like the original, the original building that you're adding to. So I don't have an issue with that, but, the National Park Service guidelines for National Register Districts and all, say that basically when you do something and add to it, you should be able to differentiate it from the original structure. So you don't make it look exactly like the original structure, but it should be complementary to the original structure. So my question was, I understand, that everything that was approved, covering up the stone was approved. I don't have any questions about that. My question is, would you consider extending that brick veneer, that brick face, at least on that, to cover that block up? Because it's such a contrast, and you see it from the street side. Would it be possible to just extend the brick just to the face of over this block that you're adding on this side? So when you paint it, it does have some continuity. It looks like, you know, it's such a contrast from the brick, and that's not really, I think, the intent of some of the historic preservation guidelines. It's just a comment, I'm making. I'm not saying this is a deal killer, but that's something I was wondering if the applicant would consider placing brick on that, over that block, to extend that over. So that's the question I have.
That wasn't in the plans originally. But I mean, I guess it's something we could consider, but I mean, it's not something that we had in the plans. It would actually be adding weight to that platform that's already there, adding more stone to that platform, and it also would be adding more structural engineering to that wall that's already been structurally engineered before.
Okay, I understand that. There is, you know, the veneer, actually, there are products that you can get that aren't the full brick. You can get products that are thin set, and to put on that wouldn't add too much weight. Yeah, I am an engineer, so I understand your concerns about adding weight to the platform. But
If we used what you're speaking about, if we use that, there could be some contrast when we paint it. There could be some differentiations on the paint taking to the same as the brick that was already there originally before. We were trying to keep in contrast with the same material that the building was already in using what was already on the building. So as far as it being clay brick and being block, cinder block. So we weren't trying to get anything more modernized as far as like modern material, as far as siding or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I've never seen anything where it is side by side between what you're speaking about, like a half brick,
right,
that's like glued on the stone,
right,
against side by side to real brick,
right.
to see if that would, you know, coincide as far as like being painted. I don't know if that would throw it.
Yeah, see, the thing, it's just the texture of the cinder block, the way it's struck against the brick. I mean, there's such a contrast. You're supposed to, it's supposed to kind of complement, when you do an addition in a historic building, should complement, but you should know it's an addition. That's the only comment I have, but, you know, that, I mean, that, I'm just offering that as if that was a possibility.
I know we don't have any pictures of the other side of the building, but the other side of the building is a mix between brick and block too.
Okay, all right.
So, the other side of the structure.
Okay, so you're saying this is already done. I haven't seen the other side of the building.
Yeah, so the other side is primarily more block, but it has brick mixed into it. So primarily at the time of when the structure was built, they were basically using block and brick basically for the outside of the actual structure itself. Okay. The reason we were trying to save that limestone is that limestone is actually coming out of the building. And so that limestone is not just the exterior of the wall, it's the interior of the wall too. Right. So by putting that brick there, we actually have mortar behind that brick that's holding that mortar in place of that wall to keep that wall intact. So that was kind of the main plan, is to try to keep the building intact as much as possible.
Okay,
Madam
thank
Chair.
you.
Diane? We have another question.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
So that's the point I was going to bring. It's actually on the other side. We got to look at this from the whole structure point of view. So the way I'm reading this as a commercial insurance person is I'm reading red block and brick masonry. It's not, it's literally saying exactly how it's supposed to be and the way he's drawing it. It's brick and concrete. And if you look at the other side of the building, it's very similar to what he's doing. Now, if he were to do brick veneer on top of that concrete, unfortunately, he's going to start jeopardizing the possibility of the roof when they put the roof in.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I hate to always be the one pointing this out. We're in quasi-judicial, and you're giving expert testimony.
I'm trying to say that it's what I'm defending the side of staff with the way they worded it, and also on the fact that if we were to try to extend that comment of why can't we just slap brick veneer on here? Brick veneer is going to give that excess push out, and it's not going to mix well. That's all I'm trying to bring to the applicant's point, is defend his point that this
most of the time with real structural brick, you sew it in. So it's sewn from the original structure into the new brick being gone in. So you keep us the same pattern as you would across there. So that's kind of what we were trying to keep in with actually this structure only has one brick wall previously, which is just this where the signage is right now. on this side of the building. On the opposite side of the building, it's a mix between brick and cinder block. So,
Madam Chair, to his
Yes.
to his point, if looking at street views of the other side, it is exactly the way he is building it accordingly. So I believe that the applicant is in his right to, he's staying within the guidelines of what he's supposed to be doing. To go back and make staff do more work, to come back here to approve what we're already doing is taking time away from the applicant that's already spent hard-earned money on this and taking time away from building it. I believe that he's trying to make it flush to what the other side is already looking and still trying to preserve the nature of the building.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay, this conversation that I just had about this was, this, like I said, this not a deal killer for me. I wasn't aware that the other side of the building is also like this, brick and into the block. So, I mean, to me, I was just asking if that was an option. But I'm not concerned that he can keep it with the block as far as I'm concerned. As far as this, I don't want to hold them up either, especially if this is how it is on the other side of the building, so.
Anyone else? I do have a question.
okay, this one,
And this comes from recent, in the past year or so.
okay.
We have had to hear over and over and over again setback issues. So if you're adding, I don't know what that block wall is there to the north of your building.
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
That will be the finished room.
All right, so what's on the other side of that?
There is a easement of grass between the neighbor's home and it would be in your overview. There's a property easement that's between the building and the neighbor's yard, basically.
Okay, my question basically is going to be to staff. Before we get too far into this, let's make sure that that easement is there and that the easement has enough footage, so we're not arguing over a 2-foot or 6-foot or whatever easement for this building. And as you know, this has been something that has occurred over and over again. So that would be my only suggestion, would be that staff investigate that easement and make sure that the neighbors.
Well, there's a fence with a gate.
It's okay. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
they need to make sure.
Yeah, it was there when I bought the property. It's
I know.
part of the property. So
We've heard so many times.
Okay.
I heard it.
yeah,
I bought the property. I thought it was. So
no, I mean
we
there's
just
property
need to make
markers back there
sure.
and everything. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
That would, just to confirm, that would be part of his permitting process.
The easement?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not trying to be difficult.
No.
I've sat through hours of this.
Okay.
Final argument by the applicant.
I don't have any. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Staff? So staff's recommendation then, you have in your resolution, the way it's written, where it talks about having the brick and block masonry. So and it talks about red, being red, it has to match the rest of the building. So if you choose to approve this, the resolution as in your packet, then you would move to approve as in your packet.
Yeah.
And which gives that flexibility. The other option is to approve, as the staff recommended, was to include the red brick on the east side, which I think, as we've discussed, it's, I think that was more a hope, and really it's better to keep it where it's flexible. I think that's what, I think that worked with I know that Board Member Montalto is very astute in all those kind of things and experienced with that, and we've talked about that. So I think it's what will work. If we can do the veneer on there, I know he will, and if we can make it work. Otherwise,
I don't think it's the need for that.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask one question because usually when staff put in conditions, they're part of the resolution, or they're part of the motion.
They are.
So if
what
we
you
take
have-
staff's recommended motion along with the conditions, then we're back to the confusion that we
No.
started with here.
You will want to remove, right, you want
Which
to
has
move
been my
approval.
suggestion this whole time, that the applicant knows what he's asking for. Staff seems to be a little bit confused.
I think
And
we
my
had a
suggestion,
different
hang on one second.
understanding.
When our staff seems confused, I think if there's no time sensitivity, it's time to reset and come back when we're all on the same page. And I'm not quite sure that we're all on the same. That's just my feel of the moment. So I couldn't quite get an answer about whether there was a time sensitivity that we needed to do this immediately, or if we had a little bit of time. But that we usually don't hear the word hope when it comes to staff recommendations. So that's what I'm curious.
understand.
Are we hoping for these things? Or are these things as conditions that are in, that just sort of closes the circle on my feeling that we have some confusion that's going on here. But it's up to the board whether you want to move forward tonight. Again, I didn't hear whether there was a time sensitivity. If there's not, then I would again say, let's table it, let's let staff get unconfused and come back and make us a presentation where we see pictures of both sides of the building. We have a better idea of what's happening here, and we can feel a little bit better about moving forward. But that's my suggestion.
If I might just conclude the staff's presentation in that vein, that the recommendation that you have in your packet is for the language as you have it there, where it's read that it's having the brick, the red block and brick masonry as a condition, period. And then if you choose, you have that option to adopt that resolution to approve that, or if you choose to go with staff's recommendation as presented tonight, which is with the understanding that there would be the red brick on the east and the block on the rear, which is staff's recommendation, then you can recommend that. However, I mean, you can approve that. If the reasoning of staff is that that was the understanding, that we were hoping to have the red brick on that side. But if the applicant there's no way they're going to do that, then that's an issue to consider. The other option is to defer, and the applicant, I know that he would like to go ahead and get going and get this closed in and finished, but that's your determination. So you have the option to approve the resolution in your packet, the resolution with the conditions amended as presented, or to defer, or to deny, or change.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, move to table until the next meeting.
Thank you. Any discussion on that?
Second.
Second? All in favor? Discussion?
And move to table and have staff come back with pictures of what it's actually going to look like and drawings to show what the applicant intends to do.
I also would like to add into that we make sure of the easement. That's really an important issue to me.
Just clarification on the easement. The easement issue would be part of their permitting process to get the building permit to finish. So that's not
what we
necessarily something
heard
that
before.
we would need to do now, but I think that since we brought the issue to their attention, it will be addressed. But my concern is that it's kind of a waste of the applicant's time. He did give us a photo and an accurate rendering of what he wanted as part of his application. So I tend to disagree that.
Some of it didn't come in our packet.
It is, I think it is in our packet.
Photos in our packet. There's this photo here.
Yeah.
And this form,
Madam Chair,
that's not a photo.
the site plan that he provided and the pictures were taken today, the site plan was just provided the other day, so it was not included at we did not have that at the time.
Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may. So what I'm reading from staff here, this is the biggest part of the Historic Review Board, I believe.
What
Okay?
page are you on?
I'm on page 13 on the findings. The historic and architectural nature of the building will be enhanced and not be adversely affected by the proposed alterations. That to me is a very specific key word that I'm seeing here.
that nothing, it's being enhanced and nothing's taken away from it. So that means that we're not jeopardizing our historic values. We're, back to Gavin's point, this is more time on staff, more time on the applicant. We know what he's trying to do. If there's nothing here that's gonna adversely affect the proposed alterations and potentially harm the historic value, I don't think there's an argument at this point or even a further discussion. The applicant's done his diligence, he showed us what he wants to do, he's adhering to everything else. That's my 2 cents. That's number one on the findings, and I think that's the most important thing. Nothing's being done to jeopardize the historic value.
Any other discussion?
I think you have a motion on the floor to table, you have to deal with
We
that
have to
before
deal
we have
with
any further
that
discussion.
before we do this.
Sorry about that.
So the motion is, did we get a second on that? I didn't write that down. Thank you, Peggy. All right.
Now we gotta go to Scott.
Yeah, the city attorney,
Madam Chair, the issue before you is competent substantial evidence. That's the decision that you make, and you have a motion to table in front of you right now. And so that'll be our next item to take up for the vote.
are there any other questions on the motion to table this? Public questions? You had your hand up.
I'm just gonna offer some information. I've been trying to get this approved for over a year now. This has been about a year and probably going on 4 months that I've tried to get this done. I've dealt with a lot of confusion down at the building department and with
So have we.
issuing papers and trying to get those kinds of things done. It was a lot smoother the first time when I came before. When we started the process in doing this, we had everything approved by the HARP, and then nothing was done from there on out as far as with the building department. No permits were issued, nobody was spoken back to us, nobody communicated with us. So there's been a lot of communication break between us trying to improve upon the building, improve upon the space, and the people that work within the city. So we're trying to work with y'all the best we can, and we just kind of want the same thing back.
How do I get back
So,
to this vote?
So that's where we stand on it. So we've gotten approved on some things, and then we've also complied when the building departments have asked us to stop work. We also made compliant issues during COVID too. So we're just trying to work with y'all as best y'all can work with us. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney, I wasn't sworn, but this is not sworn testimony, it's public comment. I would just point out, and I don't know the applicant, and
Will you say your name for the record?
Oh, this is Mike New with the City of Newberry. I don't know the applicant. I want to point out a couple of things, that the application in the packet is dated May of 2021. So I get that there's confusion, and for any part the city played in that, I apologize. But it is still incumbent upon an applicant to understand the HARB process, or at least get with staff. There's a HARB process, and then there's a building permit process. So you got HARB approval, then there was a failure on the building permit part, and I don't know that it was staff, but I don't know that it wasn't staff. And then we needed a second HARB approval. But in the meantime, in that lack of understanding our processes, construction has proceeded. So construction proceeded without necessary HARB approval, and it also proceeded without the necessary building permit. That's all curable, and we want to do that. But I too am confused in the back of the room about what is being proposed here, and some of that confusion is simply from staff. So whatever you guys decide to do, up or down on this motion to table, we're going to do better. But I didn't want it to just rest with you guys that this application came in more than a year ago and staff managed to punt it around for a year and a half. This application came to us in May of 2021, and this has really been the first meeting that we could put it on after receipt of this application. Thank you, guys.
speaking about is a
Hey,
resubmission.
hang on one second,
That's
sir.
a resubmission.
Hang on one second. Janine, because we're in quasi-judicial, we have to follow rules, and each public comment gets 3 minutes, so I'm not sure how much, he's got to at least have a minute left, but can we keep a clock so that we make sure we're following?
Because I wasn't tiny hand, because the applicant has no limit.
Applicant has no limit during the presentation. We're in public comment where everybody has a time limit. So I know he's got at least a minute. I'm asking you if you'll start keeping track now so that we can have a record. Go ahead, sir.
So the application that he's speaking about that was submitted in May is a re-application because my paperwork was lost originally. So the original paperwork that we had continuance of the original brick being done, when I was spoken with the building department, they basically they had new staff coming into play from older staff, and they could not find those files. They could not find those things. So I was required to basically resubmit everything I had already submitted before. So that's why there's a current current new application, and that's why we're here today. So from the previous time.
All right.
Thank you.
So
Madam Chair.
That's it.
We can't, I just want to remind the board that if staff made an error, we lost paperwork, or those are all things we can apologize for and we can work on later. The issue in front of you right now is, do you know exactly what you're voting on? Are you comfortable with what you're voting on? Are you willing for that to be a permanent fixture in our historic downtown, because you know very, very clearly what this vote means? If the answer to that is yes, then you can vote no on tabling it and vote to approve. If the answer to that is no, I'm not quite sure what we're approaching here. I know that one more meeting is not what the applicant wants to hear, but in our historic district, we generally only get one shot at these things. So in the grand scheme of things, 4 weeks is, and we can certainly call an emergency meeting and come back a little bit quicker than that. So just want to make sure we know what we're voting on right now is what's presented to you in the quasi-judicial, not about mistakes that were made on the applicant side or the city side. Those we will need to apologize and investigate for later. Ms. Chair.
So our motion that we have is to table this for
We'll do a roll call.
now. So I'll do a roll call. Joe?
Nay.
Okay.
Yes.
Table it?
Yes. No.
Ben?
No.
No.
No to table it?
No.
No.
Okay, so motion fails.
Right, so the motion fails.
Does someone else
So
want to make a new motion?
I need a new motion.
Motion to approve as per staff guidelines.
Staff guidelines in the backup material, or staff guidelines presented today?
That's where the problem lies, isn't it?
It's a
Madam
package.
Chair, may I offer a suggestion on?
Sure.
As
That would
I'm
be
on-
good.
The best I can, and maybe I'll cloud it even further, I hope not. But it sounds to me as though the brick veneer on the lime rock has been previously approved. Do we all agree with that concept so far?
I don't know, has it?
Yes.
Was it? It's pre-approved.
Veneer?
Yeah, the red brick over the limestone was already approved.
Okay. So if that is the case, that work has already been done.
But that's brick, not brick veneer.
Or brick, I'm sorry, brick,
Okay, all
over
right.
the lime rock.
Go ahead, Scott.
Now, if we look at the conditions on page 13, it says a 31-foot by 10-foot storage room addition to the eastern rear portion of the building and shall be constructed such that the building materials and colors are consistent with the existing building, i.e. ribbed 26-gauge metal roofing and red block. As I understand the presentation this evening, the back rear portion of the storage room facility will all be block, concrete block, painted red to match in color the rest of the building. If we put a period right there and strike and brick masonry, I think, at least in my mind, I'm clear on what the presentation is, because we're not providing additional brick over the concrete block. So if we put a period there, I think that clarifies.
Where's the period?
The period would be at
After red block?
after red block. Then that's my understanding of what is being presented. And I think it clarifies what the applicant is attempting to do.
Madam Chair, may I amend that motion to reflect the period?
Yes.
So I'll amend the motion to reflect staff's recommendations to add, to strike out in the condition 1 brick masonry, to put a period after red block, and also on number 2, the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits and appropriate setbacks. To Linda's point, it's just to adhere to the setbacks.
I'm writing.
Part of the permitting process.
It's part-
is to
but it's just to
confirm that
be-
our concern is addressed, that the appropriate
The-
setbacks are observed whenever they get their permits, I think is the reason behind
See,
that.
I don't have the drawing, but I can see what that was, how many feet that was. That looks awfully close in the photograph.
Well, I mean, and just to the chair's point, I mean, the concern is very valid on what she's saying. We see it time and time again where we have applicants come back, I didn't know. So if we have something in writing, just as, you know, we understand that's part of the permitting process, but put it into the motion. So, that's my motion.
All right, do I have here a second?
Second.
All right, Gavin, a second. Questions from the board? Questions? On the motion? Questions? Yeah?
No?
Nope. Any question from the public? From the public, questions for the motion on the floor? All right, roll call vote.
What is the motion, please? It's just this, but
Oh.
right after red.
On page 13?
Yes, I've got them. I've made.
All right, and then add the period, and then
Strike out masonry.
strike out the masonry, you got that?
Yep.
And that it's approved with appropriate setbacks.
Is there still time for discussion, or is it? Okay, my question is, what does appropriate mean?
With what?
Setbacks.
Appropriate setbacks?
Appropriate, I mean, the setbacks are in the code, right?
Guidelines of the city's requirements.
What code, okay, I think, I just question the language appropriate. Isn't there a better way to state that?
I'll be happy to restate it. My concern is there's a concrete wall evidently
Yes.
between them and the neighbor.
Yes,
And that, I don't know how long that wall has been there. It could have been put in there in 1940 for all I know.
right.
So we have no idea. That line might run right through the middle of that old station. We don't know. So I want to know where the property line actually
Yeah,
is.
I understand. I was just questioning if there was a better way to state that.
Help me out.
Madam Chair, I might say what your concern is verify.
Verify.
Because they've already happened, the wall's already there.
Verified,
Verify the
okay.
setbacks.
Before
Got it.
construction moves on,
Before
so
construction
you need
begins.
the maker of the motion to amend his motion and the seconder to,
Go ahead.
And say it.
would the maker of the motion amend your motion to change the word appropriate to verify?
With
Nine.
verified setbacks?
Would the seconder of the motion
Before
to verify the setbacks before
Before.
construction?
Yes.
And the seconder agrees, okay?
Everybody
Any
got
other-
it? Do I need to read it again?
No.
We're all there?
I think it's already constructed.
Okay, thank you. I really am not wanting to come back to that.
I know, that's why I put it there.
So, where am I now?
Motion, we did public comment. Roll call
We
vote.
did public comment, now it's roll call.
Roll call, that's where we were. Go ahead.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
And yes. Motion passes unanimously.
We're out of quasi judicial.
Go back to the picture of baby Scott. I love this picture, man.
This one's gotta be a lot.
Many moons ago.
So now, do we need a motion to accept or whatever this? Or we just accepted it with the modifications?
Just
Or
accept.
we did-
We accepted it with the modifications.
Now we're moving on to our agenda. Or we gotta get out of quasi judicial.
Done.
We're done with, yeah.
Yeah, you guys are good.
Where are we?
Item 3, request for
Back, here's Mike. Okay. Had a long conversation with Bill today.
I'm just making sure.
I'm just verifying that
About what?
I'm in the right place here.
Oh, I'm
How you doing, lady? All right?
I'm good.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
Thank you, sir.
I'm surprised we don't have a bigger crowd because we're talking about the two-way fairs.
So we're talking about, yeah, street lights.
Yeah,
Wait.
but I mean, citizens of Newberry.
Wait until they start with the Dozers.
We have a.
We're not done.
We were talking.
Well,
about
Sorry, Mike.
So, the community has immense amount of confidence that this board would select streetlights. That's why they're not worried about it. That's why they're not here. Madam Chair, my name is Mike New. I'm the city manager, and I'm honored for an opportunity to present before the board the streetlight selection for the FDOT Twin Pairs project. And I think just for clarity purposes, this is not a request for a certificate of appropriateness. We're not asking the board to approve utility infrastructure because in theory that's just kind of outside of this board's purview, but we're asking this board with your expertise to select a street light. This board is ideally suited to be one that is tuned into our historic district and selecting a light that is befitting of the district, even though it's not necessarily in your purview. So we're considering this a recommendation, but staff intends to forward your recommendation to FDOT as the city's selection for street lights. So I appreciate your time for me going through that explanation. I'd like to kind of take you through, if I can make this puppy work, a brief presentation. The project overview, we've had a lot of discussion about our Twin Pairs project. Essentially, that's going to be about 1.25 miles, 1.2 miles of highway re-improvement. We're gonna take a 2-lane highway and convert it into a 4-lane highway on 2 separate streets in town. It'll be 1-way 2-lane going westbound on First Avenue. It'll be 1-way 2-lane going eastbound on our existing State Road 26. FDOT's been working on this about 4 years. There's been tons of communications and public forums. They're currently in design mode. The design should be complete in the spring of 2022. The design team hopes to get it immediately into construction and take advantage of infrastructure funding that is out there right now like crazy, and President Biden is working on more. So we hope to see construction start very soon, but we have no guarantees. We believe that when all is said and done, this will be about a $35 to $40 million injection into our downtown district. Very excited. FDOT has made a commitment to this being a total streets project, which is a whole program they have to make sure that these street corridors are not only usable by motoring public, but by pedestrians. They look nice, they have nice lighting, and that brings into to discussion this item. Here's renderings, the last renderings we received from FDOT about what the roadway would look. It's a split. The bottom half is the easternmost portion that starts at what we know in the community as the Wynn property or next to Corellis Drive. And then it extends west to the left margin, which is about where City Hall is, and then it picks back up at the top and extends down to a roundabout. Newberry has thousands of roundabouts, and you're all very comfortable with them, at County Road 337. And then it tapers back into a 2-lane moving out towards the county line. So our objectives tonight are to standardize on street and pedestrian lighting in our downtown district. And really, we see this as not just for the state highway corridor. What this board selects tonight, we think will be the downtown standard on local streets, on public parks, the City Hall campus. It'll be this light or something within its family. So we're trying to, it's a big decision for us. Our downtown is about to undergo a change for the better, and I would like you guys to participate. We have kind of pre-selected. It isn't the world as our apple, is that the name of that? It's not an unlimited choice. Us being in the utility business, we like to know that we can find affordable product, that it's inventory, that it's used by our peers in the industry. And so we looked at our peers in the industry that maintain bigger inventories than us, and we kind of pre-selected it down to one manufacturer and a couple of their offerings. These are not going to be novel offerings for you. If you're riding around the state of Florida and you see these architectural street lamps, you're going to see, yeah, that looks like what Mike and his team presented to us tonight. So these are your board choices. We're going to ask you to pick a fixture style, and names like Domia, Historia, and Majesta. We're going to ask you to pick a mounting arm style, a fixture color, and the fixture would be the entire pole, being black or dark bronze are your common ones, but there's a palette of colors in there. And then the light color, which is probably the thing, if you shop for lights at your home, now you know you can get them in very yellow to cool white, and the lights that we're showing you tonight are warm white at 3000 K to very neutral, what they call daylight at 4000 K. Next is what the board is not choosing. Things like pole height, pole spacing, the length of the mounting arm, the light distribution pattern emitted from a light, and the street light operating voltage are down to our team or design engineers. They'll pick those things, but we are asking you for the aesthetic quality of what we're seeking. So these are the three fixture styles that we've come up with. Our neighbors are using them. They're widely available in the industry. They're affordable. As I was explaining it to the sales rep, we want to pay for a Chevy. We just want it to look like a Porsche. So this is their Chevy priced Porsche offering. Two of them, the Historia and Majesta, are essentially the same light with some metal around the lamp that comes down. And then the Domia is a dome-shaped light. So I'm going to show you some examples. This is the Domia, the first out of there. There's a Domia on a couple of different mounting arms, what they could look like, and it's there. This image was put there to give you some scale. And we can hop around and come back. There's some color photos of what a Domia light looks like on different size poles with different types of mounting arms. So that was Domia. This is Historia. Again, it's a teardrop, what they call a teardrop type light, and it has some four metal fins coming down around the lamp. These are some different renderings of the Historia. Didn't have as good a catalog as the Domia had. And very similar to this is the Majesta. So there's the scale version, and here's what it looks like in real life and in images. So just going back, these were the three choices, Domia, Historia, Majesta, and I'd like at this point for maybe the board to ask some questions and give staff guidance on what they think would be best. Next, we'll be looking at cross arms. If the board says we want to look at the cross arms or the mounting arms first so we can get a better idea, happy to take you through that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a question for staff.
Yes.
Did, when we decided when you presented us the fixture styles and whatnot, granted, bulbs last a lot longer than they used to, but in staff's recommendation, is there any kind of fixture style that's easier to maintain, maintenance-wise, change light bulbs? Because like some of these look like they have extra pieces that would have to come off to change a light bulb, and that's more work for our guys.
These are
right.
These are all have LED light drivers in them. The guts are going to be the same. Access is going to be relatively the same. Okay. So when you drop the lens off of the Majesta, it's going to come off with the same ease as dropping the lens off the Historia. It's just a little bit more bulk on the Historia.
That was just my concern. It's just more time for our staff to be out there doing it.
Staff loves it when the board's looking out for it. So those are the types of things I'm supposed to be doing, is making sure we don't select something that we can't work on.
Yeah, I don't want them spending 3 hours on one light bulb.
Exactly. And all of these also, there's a new concept out there called dark sky lighting, and it is meant to ensure there's not light pollution. So if you're driving toward any urbanized area at night, you'll see just, it looks like a mushroom cloud of light. That's light pollution in some people's mind. These lights are all designed to point there, to aim down, so that if you can see beyond the light, you should be able to see the stars in Newberry with these lighting systems. I'd say that these dark sky lights, and Bill may know more about it than me, it's a 5-year technology. It's pretty new to the industry, but all 3 of these lights feature dark sky technology.
I was gonna ask, now that DCC, even though it's a private property, they do have these very nice looking lights at night, and they look like they're facing down. Is that very similar to what you're?
That's absolutely a design standard that
Okay.
we would achieve. Now, I don't think staff reviewed or approved those, but it very well could be this dark sky technology, which has become, if you'll remember, Gold Star was the standard for energy efficiency some years ago. Night sky has become a new standard for street lighting and for outdoor lighting.
Thank you.
Sure.
I really want to know, I mean, I'm glad we're discussing the lighting because I was very concerned about the historic homes back here
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that street, that they're not blinded by street lights at night.
Correct.
That would be just, I can't
is.
even imagine.
It is the designer's intent to make sure that our street corridor is well lit so that people feel safe walking down it, so that they feel like they cross the street with enough light. I had a conversation today with someone that felt like that this side of Newberry is too dim to feel comfortable walking at light without allowing light to emit or trespass out of the public right-of-way onto private property. So that would be the objective of a lighting designer. Now, this first piece is going to be designed by a qualified lighting professional, FDOT component. They'll be looking for all those things.
Okay, just so we know that
Absolutely.
if I'm living there, I don't have that shining right into my,
We're ordering a special spotlight just for your yard.
thank you.
Madam Chair. Are you looking, Mr. Manager, for someone to make a motion on Dominia Historia Majesta?
Comments? Yeah, pick one and gain consensus.
Go ahead.
Which one do you like? Yes, who had a comment?
Madam Chair, yeah, just to elaborate on what Mike said about the dark sky standards. After our last meeting where we approved the subdivision that surrounds Easton, I was contacted by the chairman of our astronomy star club that's out here, and I actually had a meeting with those folks. This is not quasi-judicial, so it's okay for me to do that, right, Scott? So, anyway, they wanted to buy me a cup of coffee and tell me about the International Dark Sky Association and Dark Sky Standards. And what first piqued my curiosity is Jerry Diedenbach brought it up is that we probably should incorporate the IDA standards into all of our buildings if we want to keep Newberry the quiet agricultural community that it's been. So I just wanted to put that bug in your.
Great idea.
The IDA, the International Dark Sky Association, has standards, and it sounds like DOT's probably already into that, but maybe we could put that into our request, is that it be compliant with IDA dark sky standards.
Absolutely.
I'm sending a text to Amy right now, so to make sure that it actually.
You know
I have
me.
another question for staff.
Okay, go ahead.
Madam Chair, is there any staff recommendation as far as the light color is concerned, to the chair's point of sometimes like that white, that 4,000 K daylight could seem, and that's the key word, seem, that it's extremely bright, where it could potentially bother residents? Would you recommend the 3,000 because it seems lighter? Did staff look in that? Or?
It's funny that you asked for staff's recommendation, because I purposely didn't put a recommendation in here, but the one item that I have the most concern about is the light color. People select the warmer colors because it seems to be more historic or traditional. Every study that I've seen on the visual clarity and acuity from this 4,000 light, because it's not so cool that it really feels cool, is they're clearly the choice. And And if you look at some of the images, she's jumped ahead. She's stealing a little bit of my thunder there. I'm kidding. But I think in terms of selecting a light color, if you ask me for my recommendation, I would say very strongly, I think 4,000 is the way to go. I don't think it will result in life
It's a lot
trespass.
clearer. I mean, it looks like they're,
Not
especially
shadows.
for, yeah, I mean, for safety purposes, there's enough light, there's no shadow.
Well, there are fewer shadows with that 4,000.
Right.
When you look at the yellow and the white.
And that's why I wanted to know if staff looked into that to see how that would impact.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just in the interest of time, he's got 4 other questions for us to
I'll give my
answer.
opinion to kick us off.
As we get,
So the lighting color is something that became a trend in shopping centers a couple years ago. And if you've ever been to a new shopping center that has the bright white lights, you walk out and your reaction is, wow, this feels so much safer. So I'm a proponent of the bright white lights. And I think that my preference on style is the domia. I think that it helps to point the light down, and I like that it doesn't have the globe surrounding it. Some of the issues that we've had on the street here is that gets broken, and even if it gets fixed quickly, it looks bad while it's broken. And I just think it's a cleaner, nicer look.
my question is, if we go with the domia or either of them, we have those flags that you bought to put
Yes.
up,
Absolutely,
and we all know, we have Christmas lights.
absolutely.
We absolutely have Christmas lights. So are we taking that into consideration? Is there a plug-in for the Christmas lights?
Madam Chair, you're stealing my last slide.
Oh,
There's not one conversation we have with a vendor that doesn't indicate that we are going to have all of those things on our street lighting. It absolutely is a must.
so would it make any difference, I guess,
No, ma'am.
with
It
the
makes-
flag, not the
ma-
Christmas lights,
makes
but
no
with the
difference.
banners? Which, a hanging down one or,
No, it makes no
that
difference.
makes no difference, okay.
Madam Chair, we may have had a motion, I'm not sure if it was put in that form, but do we have a motion?
Is it a motion?
Is it a motion?
Wait, are
Want
we
to hear
motion to
different people's
approve?
opinions?
Like,
Who made a motion?
Well, Gavin had a recommendation that he likes the domia.
I mean, I second it because I like that one, but does it
I mean, I think
Sounds like a motion to me.
The clearest thing is for the board to make a motion on
Do
each. We have 4 different decisions to
But we
make,
don't have a color or mounting arm.
but those are the other decisions to make.
Let's go one at a time.
That's what I thought we were doing, so.
All right, we need
are here.
we need to,
We have a motion by Board Member Gavin, a second by Naeem for domia.
Domia.
Domino with a bright light.
No, we're not at the light yet, Naeem.
Listen, I'm just trying to.
We can
okay.
add that, and that'll skip one conversation.
I'm have to say,
I'll
well, I
second
can't
domia.
say. You're going to second it?
Which one? You like the domino?
I
So
don't,
there's 3 for Domino.
That's not my favorite, but
Mine either.
it would be okay.
I don't like it.
No, I think, that when I look, and again, I live in an historic district, in Gainesville, and we have different kinds of light fixtures, but, Newberry was a smaller town. The domia is a simpler structure, and to your point, looking at the fixture from a residential standpoint on the next street back here, it's probably going to be less harsh on your eyes. You're not going to see it as much. I've seen these lit up. And so I think it's probably overall, for continuity, even for that street alone, to keep it out of the annoying people that are living along that corridor, I think it'd be a good fixture, for this town. So, anyway, it's my 2 cents.
So we got a motion for Domino.
We have a motion from Gavin with domia for the 4,000, a second from Naeem.
With the
domia
4,000.
With the
With the
4,000.
4,000.
We're gonna blend those two
The
together.
light.
Be muddled.
And we had some public comment, or some comment on it. Any other comments?
I think we did.
Now you go.
Do we have public comment? We have a public person sleeping.
Probably do this one all in favor.
Okay, all in favor of domia
And 4,000.
and the 4,000? Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Unanimous.
so
We're
that
gonna-
is what we have,
Alright.
Mike.
We're going to look at 4 different mounting styles, and let me see, I'm going to also show you the domia with 4 different mounting styles.
Is there a name for those styles? Mike?
Well, they're gonna, I guess for your purposes, it's gonna be 1 on the left, 2, 3, and 4 to the far right. I've got them listed elsewhere in the presentation, but I don't think they're M222 and M229. I don't think that's gonna help. Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't be afraid, someone just.
I like the curved shepherd crook
Which one?
Is that 1, 2, 3, or 4?
You like the fourth one, Bill?
I like the third one over best.
Wait a minute, where are you?
Here.
Right here, this
This-
one?
this-
1, 2, 3,
Third one.
So
third
this
one
here.
over.
She likes that one, and Bill likes that one.
I think the first two would look better with the other fixture. That's my 2 cents, and because they got more ornamentation on it. The last two are simpler
With this,
with this particular, with the domia fixture, yeah.
I don't know, man. Four can grow on me, I can tell you that.
I do like how number 3 extends a little bit further out. So if you're thinking, if this is set to the left of the sidewalk, so if it's the light, then the sidewalk, then the street, the third one is going to extend the light further out over the street than the fourth one.
We're gonna hire him to work in the electric department. Those are the things we look at.
I could go with the third one.
Now, on the fourth one, is it similar to the way it's pictured on the next slide? Can you go to the next slide? No, the one with the pictures of these. Keep going.
I'll back up to it right there.
So you see how, like, Bill said the fourth one, which happens to be the second one here, the
Mhm.
curve? Does it have that extra piece where they're hanging that floral arrangement? Is that
that's probably
something?
where we hang our banners.
That's an option for every,
Okay, so that can happen.
that's an option for every pole they offer.
Go back to that, please,
To the
Mike.
picture?
Go back to that picture, please. There, well,
Ooh.
that. Boy,
How
you're
about that one?
fast.
See the
That's
flower
kinda
hanger?
like-
They
yeah.
offer that for everything, just like they offer the banner arms for everything.
Yeah,
And the
But
one
flower
on the
hangers
arms-
require
I
flower
really like that.
caretakers.
yeah.
Mike, can you go back to the diagram that shows the actual length of the overhang? Can you blow it up on 3 and 4? Tell me what that distance is to the
From
light
the pole?
fixture? I think if you go back a slide.
On the,
Yeah, the top distance from the arm.
I
to the
can't,
light fixture. Can you
I
read
know that one is about 2 feet, number 4 is about 2 feet, 20-something inches. Janine can probably see it back there, and the
In the
Okay.
packet, it says
30 inches.
It says 30 inches, and then the longer one is
Oh,
40
48.
inches.
Right, 40, those are the dimensions, okay, thanks.
Mike, Madam Chair,
Yes,
do we have any, because I think Gavin's point is, to me, is the only really relevant, if we were sticking out and we're getting more light, do we have any data to know the light, radius, thank you, for the beam? Is 3 significantly more than 4 because it's sticking it out, or is it negligible?
There's a catalog that has that, Mr. Mayor. I would say that our staff picked number 3 for that exact reason. They were trying to get the lights closer to the travel lanes. It's just, when they put up normal Cobra heads, same thing. They're looking to get a 6 or an 8-foot arm to get it beyond the sidewalk and the parking lane, to get it out over the travel lane. I try not to let that dictate, but Board Member Johnson brings up a good point.
I really like the idea of the thing hanging out to hang. I don't know who would
That
plant
goes on
all
all
those
of them.
plants, but in Mount Dora, they do that, and it's really, really attractive.
I think it's the Garden Club.
The garden
No, it is
club.
not.
Pretty sure it's the
Y'all
contract.
would hang that one up.
And the proper mounting height is 8 feet off the ground, so they have to be
See,
maintained
we're
off
not
the
tall
level.
enough in the garden club.
I'm sure they can let
So,
you on.
I'm sorry, I digress.
I'd have to get a bucket truck.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes,
Can we
I'm
make,
sorry,
can we
yes.
make a motion?
Sure.
One question before, for Mike. Since you call them 1, 2, and 3, so number 3, just so the motion states the actual mounting arm style, is that M229 on your slide?
Can you zoom in for me?
Yeah, that's 1229.
Okay.
Yep.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that
M229.
mounting arm style M229 pendant be used for all the light fixtures.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Madam Chair, real quick, we have, I have a question on the motion. So I agree, but our fellow board member just brought up a very valid point on on page 16, on slide 16, it says M222 pendant on all three of them, so we just want to make sure that we're picking the correct one when we say 229.
M222 would work for all three of the lighting, all three of the lighting options that we previously gave you.
But if we want the M229 option, and that's what we.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The M229 works with this. as
Yeah, I
well.
just want to make sure that that motion.
The only arm that doesn't work well with everything, I think, was the M240. When they sent me the choices, the 240 didn't go with everything. But I think in this case, they're showing you, the manufacturer provided this drawing. It shows all four arms with the Domia light that you selected.
All right, we have a motion for Domia, is that correct?
M229.
Number 3. And second, are there any more questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
That's
All
my
right,
mistake.
then that's it.
I see.
No, we got to pick out the color.
And we have one, so you've already selected the light color, and you selected the 4000K. Those are two different looks at the difference between 3000 and 4000K.
The
And then-
fixture color.
We've already voted on that one.
And
Yeah, we're
fixture
good on
color,
that.
yeah, you've already voted on light color, so
We're
now
good.
we're to fixture color. And the manufacturer offers many. I would suggest that for our type of street lighting project, the two most common and staff's recommendation would be that we start with black or dark bronze, and my experience is bronze fades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about
Chair.
to say it would be easier to maintain.
We
Yeah.
had black for a long time there.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
just going to go ahead and publicly state that the city did not recommend that royal blue color, and our Panther colors are blue and gold, so it should have been in the top three. I'm just going to go ahead and say.
I was going to motion for the blue in honor of our boys winning state.
We've also used black. That's true.
Yes, we do. We have black
I
T-shirts.
like the black to keep it
And black
simple.
goes with the wrought iron we have in various.
Yes,
Keep-
it does.
It's easier to maintain, I think, and,
It's easy.
motion, I'll put a motion for black. for
I'll
fixture.
second that.
And then.
Any
on-
questions on that? Everybody? Okay. Then we just need to, public questions. All right.
Let's go.
Final slide.
Wait, we gotta agree on the black.
I thought you had already voted, I'm
Motion
sorry.
Did-
All those in favor?
All those in favor of the black?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We got black.
Final slide, we didn't vote on it, but staff is just advising you that we will make sure that the lights will include banner arms. Where we would utilize banners, we'll have appropriate hangers for Christmas lighting, electrical receptacles for both Christmas lighting and our street festivals. So top and bottom, where appropriate. So we're not gonna forget those things. They're important accessories to add that really help with the vibrancy of our downtown.
Another question. Go back
Yes,
one,
ma'am.
please.
Yes, ma'am.
Where the flag is, and I really want to, I thank you. You all have done a great job with those. It's always nice. But if we have those banners hanging down, would we be able to have baskets to
For the flowers.
put flowers in? I don't care.
Abs-
I'm just asking.
Absolutely, but back to a point earlier made, we would have to come to some agreement with how to maintain those flowers.
Yeah,
It would
okay.
be, that would be the
But
challenge
it would
for
be
your,
possible.
your staff. It's absolutely possible. It's another accessory, I just didn't show them in this.
Madam Chair,
We certainly could.
Back to the banners, are those permanent on the, so if there's not a banner there per se, let's say Christmas is over, there's nothing coming up for 4 weeks, are we gonna have two poles sticking out at all times, or do they come off?
Madam Chair, they are dismountable, but
Okay.
we don't dismount them.
Oh.
It's, our standard now is that we keep some banner up year
Okay, so there
round.
is
When
some
Christmas is over, we put up our spring banner. And when spring's over, we put up our Memorial Day banner, with the flags and things of that nature. So we try to keep a banner up
Okay,
permanently.
my concern was there was gonna be no banner, now you have two.
I don't
Black
think you
poles
see
sticking
them.
out.
I don't think you see them if they're empty.
Go right by.
All right.
I drive by so fast.
Thank you all.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I know the answer to this already, but it's never been stated. We're going to replace all of our current lights on this part of our pipe.
No.
I'm gonna show you that little finger again.
Chairmember Urched stole my thunder. Yes, ma'am, we are absolutely.
We're gonna change all the lights.
We're gonna replace all of
And is there
them.
some plan for the lights we have now? Like maybe on side streets or in the parks or something?
I would say not side streets. They're not
Bright
designed for traffic lighting, and they won't meet a safety standard. They were selected years ago, so we're comfortable with them there now. But I don't think we would remove 60 lamps and just discard them. I think that we would have a backup plan, to your point, parks or something of that nature, inventory for the ones that we do have, that we would have a plan for them.
Okay. Like along the railroad tracks.
Thank you. That was amazing. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Well, those are gonna be nice.
Can't wait to see it.
Maybe one of these days we'll have a room.
What?
Naeem,
What?
did you ever know what this was?
You should say like read between the lines.
No. This one's much more interesting. This is when you don't care enough to send it very fast. No, I don't do that.
Here's
That's
my
a
P and
bad
Z
thing.
stuff. Dear God, we're still on this.
Yeah, topics to remember.
All right, topics from members for discussion.
Mike, did you want the resolution also to be passed this evening? Is that something that you wanted?
I know I have my agenda here somewhere.
That's going in as
Boy,
evaluation
that's
too.
moving.
Madam Chair, absolutely. DOT is the recipient of this, and they frown upon taking the manager's word for it or waiting for minutes to be adopted. They ask that the chair execute a resolution that has been voted on by the board.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and read that
Thank
into
you.
the record, and then we can have the appropriate motions. To be resolution number HARB 2021-2, a resolution of the Historic Architectural Review Board of the City of Newberry, Florida, providing for a recommendation on streetlight design within the Newberry Historic District, repealing all resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date. And as you'll see on page 2 of the proposed resolution, the resolution will be amended. The recommended fixture style is domia. And number 2, the mounting style arm is the M229. Recommended fixture color is black, and the recommended light color is 4000K. So those will be inserted in the resolution and sent to DOT.
So we now need to vote on the resolution.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to pass as stated.
Second.
All, any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Huh? Joe second.
Now, topics for discussion. Topics for remember.
Topics from members for discussion.
Has he seen
Time
this
is
picture?
it?
A year or so ago.
A year or two. I aged a lot.
You know what ages you? Is seeing your pictures of your kids and all of a sudden they're big.
Or they start getting married. Yes.
Here we are adjourned.
We are adjourned.
I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick.
Oh, all righty then.
Ladies and gentlemen, just give us 2 minutes for our HARB members to excuse themselves. We'll have our P&Z members.
You know, you were talking about people and the setbacks. Thank you. When we built my house, see, my neighbors had taken part of my property.
Your mama did. Yes, I did.
So, without, you don't want to offend neighbors
She
when you
knows,
first move in.
yes, she would tell you this. My grandson had, I was a second third. He was a really sweet kid, but he just couldn't. So Carla let him call to order for the Planning and Zoning Board. We need the approval of the agenda. Does everybody have their copy of the agenda with them? Good.
Someone want to make a motion?
Is there,
Motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
any questions on that?
No.
Discussion?
Public questions.
Public questions on the agenda? I'm sorry.
Okay,
Moved, I think Gavin second.
okay, thanks.
All right. No public questions?
No public questions?
No.
So all those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. So it's approved. Do we have any announcements? Anybody have an announcement? Anybody in the room want to make an announcement? Okay, let's move on. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. That was a motion by me and second by Gavin.
Thank you.
And passed unanimously.
Public hearings and ordinances.
Okay, I'm going into quasi judicial.
We are now going into quasi judicial public hearing, ordinance 2021 26/CPA 21-08, and the attorney, are you taking care of that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So after he's done reading it, he'll say, and quasi judicial. Go ahead.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and put the ordinance on the record for this evening, and then we'll go into our quasi-judicial procedures. Is ordinance number 2021-26 CPA 21-08, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 10 or less acres of land pursuant to an application by HARB and Jeannie Marlowe, owners of said acreage, under the small-scale development amendment procedures as established in section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from low-density residential, 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre, to medium-density residential, less than or equal to 8 dwelling units per acre, on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number is 01943-000-000, consisting of approximately 2.08 contiguous acres, provided severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time will be to approve ordinance number 2021-26 CPA 21-08 as read by title only.
Okay. All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record.
Let's go and do ex parte. Have any ex parte?
Do we have any ex parte? Anybody? No?
Jenny, will you swear everybody in?
She's coming.
I was just gonna ask the exact same thing.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we actually, per the P&Z's last discussion about quasi-judicials, we have a minor change. So when we have multiple quasi-judicials that are all dealing with the same issue, like we do tonight with 2 and 3, we will only need to do the quasi-judicial procedure one time, right? So we can absolutely swear in for 2 and 3, and I would say we can go ahead and swear in for the next one as well. We'll need to read in each ordinance by itself, but we won't have to go back through this procedure. So if you're here to speak to either 2, 3, or 4, please stand at this time to be sworn in.
And raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Marlon? Thank you very much.
All right, staff overview, Wendy.
Madam Chair, this is first item on your agenda is a comprehensive plan amendment. This is a request to change the future land use map on 2.0 acres by HARB and P&Z Board. A request is the first part of the process to change the land use, and then we'll change the zoning following that. So this application is changing from low density residential 140 per acre to medium density residential, which is up to 8 acres per acre. Located on the north side of Oak Middle School, it does meet the comprehensive plan requirement for having centralized water and wastewater, and would provide a step down of intensity from the west to the east, where from the west is commercial, and to the east where there is single-family residential. The first part of your process for future land use map change, planning and zoning board will make a recommendation to the city commission. The city commission holds their hearings, and the next step after that is the zoning, which you'll hear after that. The location of the property is just on the north side of Oakview Middle School, on the other side of Fourth Avenue. And you see the subject property on the map. You notice that there is the commercial in red to the west, and then on
This is where we're starting.
below to the south is really the public designation for your school. The recommendation of staff is to recommend to the city commission approval of ordinance 2020. Where's your agenda? For application CPA 21-08. And the applicant is here. If you have any questions.
The applicant presentation will be next. No time limit. What'd you do with your agenda? I don't know.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Years and years I've said to say Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to be able to say that. Attorney, chair, members of the board. I only have 3 or 4 hour presentations, so don't worry, relax. You can see the property is just north of middle school. On the west is the brand coffee and electric shop, and currently vacant lot that's, I believe, under contract for some sort of development. It's a transition zone. It's 2 acres. Currently, there's 3 homes on it that have been there since Newberry moved into Maddox boundary in the 30s. My wife and I have owned it since the mid-80s. We're just selling. Time to retire. Don't have any conditions on any buyer yet, if they do what they want to do. I do have one very serious buyer who would like to pursue the tiny homes ordinance, which is a nice property for that. But obviously, I can't speak to what the buyer may choose to do. But I hope they will do something like that. We in our real Hollywood are always focused on trying to find housing for your workforce. So your roofers in town, the folks who work at Hitchcock's, work who cook at the restaurants, those are the folks we've rented to. And I hope that whoever buys will try to get to that market and build some good property for that. So happy to respond to any questions at the appropriate time.
Madam Chair, we've not been approached by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, but that's okay because it's time for the staff report first anyway, along with the recommendation.
And recommendation.
The staff is recommending approval of the application, considering that the medium density residential designation, as you saw on the map before, placing the medium density at that location is something that would provide a little bit more intense residential density, which is something that planning professionals will recommend frequently when they're in the proximity of commercial and school areas to be able to provide more variety of types of housing. So the recommendation is for approval.
Do we have any public comments at this time? Comments? Mm-mm. The applicant, Mr. Marlowe, would you like to cross-examine anyone here?
Don't answer that.
Staff, do you want to cross-examine?
Well, actually, no.
All right, do we have any questions for the staff,
Madam
the
Chair.
applicant, party interveners, or participants? Do we have any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, on the staff. So what is that in relation to, how does that tie into the residents not currently there in the yellow, but like to, I believe, Newberry, is it Newberry Oaks that's behind the middle school?
Newberry Place.
Newberry Place, and then where obviously is Oakview. How does low density to medium density, is that correct? How does that relate to what's currently in those two subdivisions? Is it very,
It's,
yeah.
when we look at the rezoning, when you look at the different types of lot sizes, you can, get a 5,000 square foot lot, you get anywhere up to 8 units per acre, but based on having those, services, with the water and sewer, you've got electric, being served.
Wendy, will you check and make sure microphone's on?
Oh. Now it's on. The recommendation being for that type of a size lot, 5,000 square foot lot, well, 5,500, 6,000 square foot lots. A lot of times they'll have those kind of sizes compared to what you've got over there. It's a lot of it's similar in that type of lot, but they'll be smaller if they go to tiny homes. Tiny homes could be built there now without any kind of rezoning or land use change. But depending on what type of buyer gets this property, the idea is making provision for the ability to have more than 4 units per acre so that you can have these smaller lots and be able to have the homes there near the schools and near the commercial.
Would that be buildable for like townhomes per se?
Yes, it could be, yes.
Would that medium mean townhomes, apartments?
It could. It doesn't have to.
Just a clarification on the medium.
Just tiny homes.
Yes, it's
Right.
right. It's not just tiny
Okay.
homes. It's multifamily, it can be single-family duplexes. You could, it's, that main thing is that you're having up to the 8 units per acre. It
And-
could just be single-family.
With that being said, Madam Chair, if we approve this tonight, knowing that there's other properties very similar just next door to it, approving this, and I don't know if this would be something legal would have to answer, would we be abide to each property owner would have to come back to the board for approval on that, and then we would have to approve because we approved one, we gotta approve all? Do they not even have to come because one was approved, it's already done deal? Because my biggest concern is, this is a great idea, I love the idea, I love the concept, but approving it to a medium density, my biggest fear is that all of a sudden, all these people are like, let's all do medium density too.
Well, from a planning standpoint, this is medium density in a location that we'd like to see some more medium
Right.
density along Fourth Avenue there. With some improvements, it's something that could work in that vicinity, just like Oakview Village and some of those others.
Right.
To be able to have some of the smaller lots. So if anyone came in to rezone, it's a case-by-case basis unless
Okay.
the city decided to go and approach the different owners and say, do you want us to do a rezoning land use change for all of this area, and you would all be included and be a part of it on your behalf. So it's just something that at this point, it would be an individual property owner coming in and requesting.
That's within my quasi-judicial questions, right? I'm good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, I didn't know if that approved everybody else going forward.
No, it does not.
All right, thank you.
Yes?
This seems very awkward, but normally we have an applicant come forward and they have some land and they want to make an improvement on it, they request a zoning change. This is an applicant who just intends to sell the land, and is trying to increase the market value of the land so he can sell it to somebody, and we really have no idea if it'll be tiny homes, high-rise apartments. I don't see a good reason to change the zoning on this land. When the applicant just says, I want to change the zoning so I can resell it.
Mike has it, you dropped it outside.
I would much rather hear the person who bought it, zoned as it is, come to us and say, we'd like to change the zoning because we have this plan for a tiny house village or something else. I really don't know what we're improving. I'm a little bit awkward that the mayor hasn't recused himself and is still very much a part of these deliberations when it's his family's land, and this is a quasi-judicial procedure, so makes the whole thing very awkward.
I'd like to point out from the standpoint of the recommendation and from the decision that's being asked of you, this is a request for a comprehensive plan amendment. So is medium density residential, 4 to 8 units, up to 8 units per acre, appropriate in this location based on the services provided and the surrounding land use? That's the question before you.
Bill, is your mic on?
So I just wanted to point that out, and then you have the rezoning part that comes after this. Usually a developer's not going to buy a piece of property often when they don't know, they don't have a guarantee or know already what they have, the ability
But
to.
we usually have the developer here presenting his plan that with some kind of a contingency offer to buy the land, or some idea of why it's being rezoned. I mean, I'm assuming that the zoning we have in this community is pretty good, and there's reasons for everything zoned as it is. But to come say, hey, I want to rezone it so I can sell it, I don't know if that's a good enough reason to rezone it.
I don't know what we're rezoning to.
This is a
Medium.
request for a comprehensive
From going
plan
from a
amendment
small to a
to
medium.
change your future land use map from low-density residential designation, which allows for zoning categories to be placed in there that would allow 1 to 4 units per acre. That's what's there now. What the request is to change your land use plan and designate it as medium-density residential to allow up to 8 units per acre, to have more of a variety of options of types of housing to be able to be done on that property. And you would have different kinds of zoning districts that can implement that category. And so if you change the land use, then the next step is for someone to come along and, rezone it. So in this land use category, you're saying that you could have single family, you could have duplex, you could have multifamily, you can have townhomes, depending on your zoning, that's going to implement that up to 8 units per acre. And that's the request before you.
All right, and we still need to know that on that particular street, on the north side of that street, when you pass where this property is and go on down further, those are homes that people have lived in for a long time. So we're also looking at changing the, if we're talking multiple families and this, that are going to be living there, or I don't know, I'm just saying.
So you have a 2.08
We're
acre.
in they're on single, most of those homes
Yes.
are single-family homes that are on acreage,
Yes.
that have been there for a very long time. So then we're changing the neighborhood.
That would be true, and it's something that's why you have future land use categories, your future land use map. You're letting people know that if you choose to approve this, you're saying that we'd like to see some of that type of development in this area near the schools and commercial, and that's something to be considered so that they could know in the future if they chose to go that route. Any development that goes in there has to be designated or planned in a way that it's going to be compatible with the surrounding properties. So that design, that development, depending on the zoning category and what type of, developments being proposed, would come before you. And so it's a request. It is a commonly recommended future land use category for these types of areas. But like you said, when you introduce something like that, you're making a conscious decision to say that this is something we'd like to see now or happening in the future.
Madam Chair, with the ordinance as it stands, how many houses can they build on this property without the medium?
Pardon?
Without the change from small to medium?
Right now,
how many can they build?
Up to 4 units per acre. So if they got 2.02
They could build-
acres, so
they
they
could
could
build
probably
eight houses.
get 8.
So changing it to medium would allow 16.
They could potentially, but remember you have to plan for roads and that kind of thing for either kind of development.
Okay.
So it's always going to be lower than that.
It's back to Bill's point. Usually we do see that, and with all due respect, I love our mayor, but we do see where a developer does come in and say, hey, this is what I want to change it to. My fear is that we change it to this without the developer. You sell it rightfully so as your property to sell as you wish. My concern is all of a sudden we approve this and we get, you know, a high-rise, we won't get a high-rise apartment building, but we might get an apartment complex. We might get something that we approve without even asking, hey, what's going in there? My question too is, you know, and forgive me if I'm trying not to step out of quasi-judicial. It's just trying to stick to, you know, back to what our fellow board member said, Madam Chair, is we usually have a developer in front of us saying this is what we planned. And, you know, that makes it a little easier to make that decision versus I just want to change it so we can sell it. Is there more money involved in that sell process? Is that going to benefit having that availability?
Madam Chair, I think
Yes.
Ms. Kinzer's point that she's trying to establish in this and the focal point of your decision of whatever it is that you're going to do is based upon really the compatibility of the surrounding properties. So as you see this on the red, on 1943-1, 1945-1, those two tax parcel numbers are commercial. So adjacent to the immediate west of this property is commercially zoned. And then 1941, I assume, is single-family residential. I assume, Wendy, and I think it would be helpful for the board to know what 1941 is and 1942. Are those a higher residential density, or are they low density residential? And then of course the residential looks to me as 1942-1 is split partially residential and partially commercial. So I think that really the focal point of the board should be intensity and density of the potential zoning change. The question that was just asked by Naeem is, okay, what is the current density for this property? What is the potential density? And do we want to see that, given we have a school to the south of this, we have commercial to the west, and then these other parcels, looks to me as though we have half and half, commercial and residential to immediate north. 1951-8, interesting to know what that is, and then 1941, and then 1941-2.
What's the 1942-1 that's half and half?
Madam Chair, the colors show you the type of the future land use on your map, and the yellowish color is your low-density residential. And most of those are single-family, developed as single-family, or they're vacant. And the same as the current property, the subject property is also low-density residential. So you've got a decision to make. This is a conscious decision that the planning department has chosen to make based on the location and the opportunity to provide additional types of housing, affordable, not necessarily affordable in the negative sense, affordable in the sense of making other types of housing available, whether it be a tiny home or a small lot or a townhome or whatever. But compatibility will have to be an issue that's addressed when it comes in for development. The issue, your comprehensive plan, your future land use map, is designated for you to plan ahead for your future land use. If that's something you'd like to see, to have a medium density, which is what staff is recommending, then that's an opportunity. You do have all of that yellow is your single family, low density, residential, future land use category. Your red is all commercial. Some properties are shown on there that look split, and they are split, but they're still considered developable half and half, which is kind of odd, and we're not sure why they did that way back when. But it's oftentimes when you have properties that are like that, they end up being able to be developed, or they come in and apply for additional commercial for the rest of the property. The fact this property is adjacent to commercial also makes that property very difficult for redevelopment as single family a lot of times. So that's something that is considered and why the staff is recommending what it is. based on the surrounding properties. And it is a conscious decision to say that we would like to someday, even if it gets rezoned to something, doesn't mean when you come in for that development, that that moment is the time for development. So it's still about having adequate, so remember that it also has water and sewer available, it has all the urban services that would be provided. So just something to think about, is that something you'd like to see? It is a recommendation by staff, and we think it's recommended that this would be a very good location to have that, and is something to establish.
Madam Chair, just a real quick comment, I'm sorry. It's just, we had a presenter come back to us and say that they had privileges, or what was the word, entitlement. So this is where I'm concerned in saying, we agree to this, and then the developer comes in and says, we're entitled because you voted for this originally. Are we gonna hear that entitlement word when a developer comes in and says, I wanna build this because this is what you approved?
Well, in this case, when you're choosing your designating properties based on your future land use map, that gives you the designation so that you know that someday that's going to be developed that way. You could choose to designate your future land use map. What's green? Just check. When you choose to designate that list, that's medium density residential, and you could say, okay, well, I'm not going to rezone it right now. It's going to stay in its current zoning as single family, and then when the developer comes along and says, I'm buying this, I know it's got the future land use category of medium density, I know I can get medium density, but I don't know what zoning category I can get, or at what actual density I'll end up getting, but that can give them that right to apply for zoning category that meets that, that fulfills that future land use category. So it gives them that right to apply. Doesn't mean that you would approve whatever it is that they requested. Okay. So that's another option. You could choose, that's why we're trying to present this, the plan amendment first. You look at it on that basis as future land use, medium density appropriate in this location. Is this something that we want to see in the future? Is this something we're planning for? If yes, then you go on, or no, but you go on to hear the zoning request, and then you choose whether or not at this time to grant the rezoning.
Okay, so that was my clarification, is I do like giving options to somebody, but I'm just scared of saying yes to this. It's gonna be like, nope, that's what you approved it, and it would have to be, these are your options, now you get to bring it and present what you want to do. So that makes me feel a little bit more, sorry.
Gavin wanted to speak.
No, he's done. I have a couple of things to point out. One is to Bill's point that we do have to be sensitive of the relationship, but I think that for this scale of a project, it would be unlikely that there would be a developer that is affluent enough yet to come forward with a site plan. It's so small that I would think that it's something that is, the zoning would be appropriate, and then they would bring forward a site plan. I don't know that it's the scale of something large enough that we would expect someone to spend the money on a site plan before they purchase the property. I think that also too, changing the zoning prior to any of that happening is a standard that we set a few months back. The Hoffmans approached us about rezoning some property on Newberry Road to allow commercial uses on their property, and now they've listed it for sale, and the sign says commercial zoning. And so I would argue that we did agree to something like this before without seeing any type of site plan for approval. My thought is that it's not a negative change. I think it's a change to promote the property to be cleared and redeveloped. It's an infill project. It's not something that's on the outskirts of town, so I don't have an issue with it.
Stan,
I've lost.
where are we?
No, we're at final arguments. Oh, wait,
Oh,
are we still hearing from staff?
applicant,
We're at staff
party
I forgot, are we at
interveners,
staff
yeah,
cross-examination?
participants. Yeah, I think we did that. Final argument by applicant
And then staff.
or the party, and then staff, related solely to the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing and introduced into the record.
So we have final arguments from the applicant, and final
Right.
arguments from
We
staff.
have final arguments from Mr. Barlow.
I'd like to thank you for the discussion. I'd like to thank you particularly for raising those issues. I happen to work all over Florida with local governments. one of the critical issues we're facing in this state is the issue of workforce housing, affordable housing, whatever you want, words you want to put on it. Some are favored in some communities and not. Classically, you always try to move from commercial to multifamily to single family. We in Newberry are still fairly affordable. I was in the city of Parkland a couple of years ago, and preceding me was a developer and said, I'm going to build you affordable housing in this city. And the mayor says, well, how much is it? The developer said, $500,000. I thought, wow. Glad I don't live in Broward County. So I understand the concerns you're raising, but I think, in the process, you're creating a future land use here. Whoever happens to buy this property is going to have to come back to you, and they're not going to have any rights other than a number of units if they can fit them in there with all the other requirements they have. You will be able to affirm the design, the egress, egress, all those things. So I don't think you give away any power that you have or any ability to control the city of Newberry, and I would not want you to. I happen to live here a long time. But I do think this is an appropriate use of this particular piece of property. And I think in the process, it will come to you in a way that you can decide what the shape is, how you want it, et cetera. So I personally don't feel, but I would certainly defer to planning professionals, that you're taking any risk in this. So, thank you.
Staff?
Madam Chair, I've not been sworn, so I'm going to take a moment to get sworn. I just want to speak to one issue that was raised.
Please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What's your name?
Mike New.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm Mike New, and I think the purposes for me speaking on this is best I can for clarity of record. I would say that to the issue of is it appropriate for a landowner to seek land use change and presumably rezoning, I think that it is almost presumptuous to say that is not the way that it ought to be. I think in Newberry, our track record is there's more property with land use change that's not ag, that was owner initiated than developer initiated. If you go up to Easton, a couple hundred acres, the owner was a family named Bryce. They had no intentions to be the developer. They wanted to get it zoned for PD and mixed use, and they did. If you move further into town, there's the Wynn property. Same thing. They were a family that sought out land use change and zoning, had no intention of being the developer, and they're not. And there's risk in doing that. The reward in doing that to me is they speed things up. They potentially sell the land for more money, but they can also speed up processes. A developer that comes in and wants to do multifamily in an area that's zoned ag can add 6 to 8 months to go through a land use change and a rezoning. If you're a property owner that says, hey, I need to have something shovel ready, then you can tell a developer that, hey, we've got land use, we only need zoning, or we have land use and zoning. You get a site plan pulled together and you're ready to go. So speaking further, the Komoka Ranch, which is owned by a developer, but this developer in this case is a property owner that has no intentions in developing. He saw a land use change to corporate park. That was in the last 3 years, and that land currently has corporate park land use. There's a piece behind the next to Newberry Oaks subdivision. It's known as the Week property. A guy named Brooke McCauley wants to develop that, and he currently has land use for multifamily, doesn't have zoning. There's the Futch property off of Southwest 15th Avenue. And Mr. McCauley is not a developer, he's a property owner. The Futch property is a couple of hundred acres, got the land use changed to mixed use, I believe, and it sits. They didn't want to pursue rezoning, but some people do. Again, there's reward of you speed things up, there's risk of that's not what the developer ultimately wants to do. We occasionally see that. If you look at Lexington Station that the Bryce family put a PD on, and the Wynn property that the Wynns put a PD on, the developers that purchased those lands actually came back to the boards and amended the zoning. It didn't exactly fit. It's kind of their risk. I feel like that at the city's perspective, we should be neutral to who brings it in, give them an honest assessment of whether they need a land use change and whether it fits our goals and objectives for the community or not. And personally, I think from staff's perspective, we try not to get wrapped up about who's bringing the application forward. We just want to treat the application without that regard as to whether it's good for our community. And I just wanted to offer the board a bit of a different take from insight that I have. I'm uniquely qualified to be aware of all these things just from the position that I have in the city. So thank you for your attention in this matter. One last comment. Just for clarification, certainly wouldn't want to correct a board member, but I do want the record to reflect that the Hoffman parcel has not received a land use change or a zoning change. They submitted an application. We had a conversation with them and asked that we hold off on proceeding. For Hoffman's, they have not. The Hoffmans have not sought.
We had a presentation and it was like commercial, agricultural change, and
It was deferred. So, okay,
I didn't know that.
good point. And so that was something. It did stop midstream because we're doing this corridor study and we're doing a visioning session, and the commission asked us not to process any additional of those changes. So that's very good. I understand. Thank you for that feedback.
All right. City Attorney, advise this decision-making body as to the applicable law and the factual findings that we need to make to approve or deny the application.
Yes, ma'am. This is competent, substantial testimony from the podium, and that includes the landowner's testimony as well as our land planner, and the opinion testimony is taken from the land planner. That's the competent, substantial evidence standard. Also, since our mayor serves as the liaison on this board, and he doesn't have a vote at the city commission level, and he also does not have a vote on this board, he's here for informational purposes. He doesn't have to abstain from voting because he has no vote. Even if you abstain from voting, you still have the ability to lobby or give your opinion on a matter that is before you if you have a conflict of interest, and that generally means that the measure inures to your own private benefit. It's a little surprising to me in the law that allows you to advocate even in that situation, but that's what our law tells us that you can do. So that's the scenario. So he will not be filing a Form 4 conflict of interest form this evening because he doesn't have a vote.
I just wanted you to do more paperwork.
So, I'm getting there, actually. I am. I think so, yes. So we do need a motion for the, to approve or continue, or whatever your motion is. Mr. Conrad, you want to make a motion?
No.
Gavin?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Gavin.
I second.
In favor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've got 3 ayes and 1 no vote. So it passes.
Madam Chair, the next item that's on the agenda, now this is the zoning portion of the discussion. So we just went through the future land use map and the comprehensive plan. So the next item will be the zoning portion of that property, same property, and as the mayor said, we don't have to read the quasi-judicial, and unless anybody has come into the room, we don't need to swear anybody else in. It does not appear to me that there's anybody new in the room. So I'll read this ordinance by title only. This is ordinance number 2021-16, LDR 2113, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the zoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application by HARB and Jeannie Marlowe, owners, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from RSF1 residential single-family zoning district to RMF1 residential multifamily zoning district on certain lands. within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 2263-003-000, consisting of approximately 2.08 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass at the appropriate time ordinance number 2021-16 LDR 21-13 as read by title only. This is on page 75 of our packet.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, sure.
Did you get my phone? Good.
Go ahead and give us a staff overview.
This application, again, is the same property we just looked at. It's still in the same location on the north side of Oakview Middle School. It does meet the requirements of the comprehensive plan for being served by water and sewer, and this is your step that provides for rezoning the property. This is Planning and Zoning Board's opportunity to make a recommendation to the City Commission, which will then hear that recommendation for rezoning, which will implement your future land use map. The application, again, for the zoning would provide a step down of intensity from commercial, which is commercial intensive, to the west, and then the low-density residential zoning to the east. Provides additional housing opportunities for properties that are located in school and commercial areas. The RMF1, Residential Multifamily 1, allows for development of single-family, duplexes, multifamily, and other compatible uses. They're listed in the handout that you have in your packet. The minimum lot and other requirements are provided in that district, in that code section. I do have that information. And the maximum density would be 8 units per acre. The actual built density, of course, depends on the actual layout of the site, drainage, roads, that kind of thing. But I'll let the applicant go ahead and take it from here if you'd like, and then we'll go on.
Hopefully for the last time, Mayor, Attorney, board members. I have really no additional comments. You've had a good discussion. You know, our intentions are clear, and we'll respect whatever decision you make. So, thank you.
To conclude staff's report, just briefly, we do have the different, when you're talking about how many lots, how many pieces of property going to be developed, whoops, oh no. I don't know what I did. Somebody help. Actually, well, let's blame it on Sierra, right, okay. No, we won't. No, it's totally me. All right, so let's zip through. Okay, so here you've got the minimum lot requirement setbacks to give you an idea of what kind of things that are allowed in that district. The RMF1 has a single-family dwelling units that can be 7,500 square foot lots. You've got your setbacks, you know, minimum lot width 50 feet. Right now, in the current residential single-family district, allows for 20,000 minimum square foot lots with a lot width of 100 feet. So that gives you an idea when you're thinking about what's there now, and this is what lists what can go there now. It can go there if you rezone, excuse me. So this gives you minimum lot requirements and setbacks on this slide that give you an idea of what would be allowed if you were to approve the RMF 1, Residential Multifamily 1 district. So depending on the site development and how it's laid out. This is the location of the property. Again, you've seen that. The recommendation of staff is to recommend to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 2021-16 to approve application LDR 21-13.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim our third-party intervener status.
Good. That's very good. Can I ask a question
Not yet.
of Wendy
Public comment.
right now? I have to wait? I forget. Where are we? Public comment? None? The applicant may cross-examine. Do you want to go for it?
No, thank you.
Good. Party interveners may cross-examine. We're not doing that. does anyone on the body or the board have any questions for the applicant, the party interveners, or participants? Any of you have a question for the applicant? No? Well, okay. Do you have a final argument to make? Okay, we're down to you again.
Competent to state the substantial evidence.
Deliberation of the application. Anybody? Mr. Conrad? Conrad?
We've gone through this very quickly. I just feel like nobody's presented any evidence that this is a better use of the land, except to say that we need more low-income housing, which I would argue that we've got quite a bit of that side housing. I mean, I don't have any data or any kind of expert presentation from anybody that this is a better use of this particular piece. I mean, I'm assuming that the original zoning is good. We put a lot of thought into it when we developed the zoning level. So if someone can give me overwhelming evidence why this parcel needs to be medium density instead of low density, I'm listening, but I haven't heard anything. I mean, this just got through it. Let's just, staff recommend that we up the zoning. Let's do it. I understand the argument that we need more workforce housing. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but that's really the only argument I've heard that says drought checks are coming. So that's not enough for me to vote to change the zoning.
Where are we at now? The what? The deliberation of the applicant, or deliberations? Okay, we need to take a vote to approve with conditions, to continue this, or to deny.
I think just to comment on Bill's point, just to bring up the conversation, I would maybe argue that the zoning would be appropriate because it's contiguous to a commercial property, and that, if our goal was to step back that intensity as we remove ourselves from the street, then it would make sense to go from commercial to either a multifamily or a more dense neighborhood to a less dense neighborhood. And that would, if I were staff, that would be my argument.
But I mean, this is the same staff that told us originally that this should be zoned low. Going with the assumption that the original zoning was done in a thoughtful manner, and that there were reasons that we zoned it low density, and nobody's convinced me that those reasons were wrong.
Chair,
The zoning that's in place now was done many years ago, and times change, development patterns change, your community changes. And this is just a recommendation for the zoning that would implement the future land use category of medium density to allow for that step down of use from commercial into your residential single family. It's in an area that's near commercial and the schools that would be promoting other types of housing with smaller lots. Doesn't mean low income, but it does mean different types of affordable housing in the sense of maybe it's a smaller lot, a smaller house, maybe it's townhomes, maybe it's depending on the developer. It could be that's something that would be decided in the future. But at this point, the question is the zoning category that's being requested, is that something that It does meet the requirements for having water and sewer. Does that meet the requirements of the future land use category, and based on the compatibility and the timing that you see now and the desire to have some other housing options and some other more increased density in that area? Staff is recommending, because based on planning principles, that is a desirable location to be able to have that. And not to say that the zoning wasn't appropriate years ago, but times are different. And also remember that we are also doing a visioning process, community visioning. We also are, it's about time where we're going to be looking at amending our comprehensive plan and updating our comprehensive plan, or future land use maps and policies. So that will be coming before you soon enough.
And I would say, good about saying, well, this is right in line with what the city's vision is, but right now I haven't received that vision. The board hadn't heard that visioning process, so that's one of the reasons I'm a little unsure about which way we're going here.
So, in respects to our board member, Mayor Conrad, as most of you are aware, I pretty much admin every city forum. And the biggest complaint I get on my forums is, when is the city, yes, we have a lot of houses, yes, we want more commercial, but a lot of the questions become, when are we going to find places that are affordable, that someone can live in, that's not, I love Norfleet, he's amazing, but that's not a $400,000 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And unfortunately, that's what Newberry has become. I don't want to say unfortunately, it is a great thing to have that. It's a good feeling to see that here. However, I feel for those people that are saying, I want to move to Newberry, but I can't even afford Newberry now. And I'm not trying to say that that's something that, hey, we need to build everything is now $80,000, $90,000 houses. But being on these forums, being alerted anytime a comment comes up or a statement comes up, that is one thing that I do read that I don't have an answer to. And as a board member, I hate the fact that I can't say, yeah, you're right. And you might see it at a different, in a different group, Bill, in a different discussion, but I'm seeing it from the online forums of citizens that are in the digital age of living here. They do want to see not everything become affordable, but they would like to see an option of something affordable. With that being said, being next to the middle school, I think that's a great location for something affordable, because it allows the kids to walk to school. That's one of the reasons why I actually built in Oakview Village. People are like, oh, you could touch your neighbor. Yeah, you know what? My son could walk to school just crossing the street. That was my selling point. And it was affordable. When he's done in school, I'll sell that house and we'll buy somewhere in Newberry that's different. But to me, I just feel like that was, since we're deliberating, that was something that I feel the citizens have approached the forums, and these forums have 5,000 people in it, and not all 5,000 are saying this, but a good chunk, I'm sure the city has seen these forums, that a good chunk do talk about wanting this. So the evidence to me is there that there has to be something to give. This is not guaranteeing that it's going to happen. This guy can sell tomorrow, and the developer that comes there says, hey, I just want to build 2 houses on here. And I do see your concern, but I do feel at the same time that Newberry has been asking for something affordable. And hey, if it's 16 houses that are affordable and that's the only thing we can offer, at least we offer something. That's my 2 cents, and don't kill me for it, please.
Does anybody have a motion for what we want to do? And basically what we're doing is going from low density to medium density. Am I correct?
Correct.
Do we want to do that? And anything that happens after that, anybody would have to come to get whatever they want to do with it. if they want to build townhomes or tiny homes or whatever,
If they wanna build
we're
something
not
that's within
in,
that zoning category,
that we're
they
not
have to come
involved
back
in
and
that.
ask for it.
Do what? I'm sorry, Bill.
I mean, it's small lots, if you wanna build something that's within the zoning category, you just go to the building department, get a permit and build it. I don't think you have to come back through planning and zoning unless you wanna change something.
Don't they have to come back to discuss what they're gonna build, the plat, the easements?
Well, it's like
Depending on the type of development, if they were going to plat it, more than, remember that it requires you to come before the Planning and Zoning Board. If that's still the process, comes before the Planning and Zoning Board. If it goes straight to the City Commission, either way, there is a process that they have to be reviewed and looked at, and it would come back.
This is 3 parcels, 2 acres.
This is one parcel.
It's one
It does
parcel.
have 3 homes with 3 addresses, but it is one tax parcel of 2.08.
I would like to put a motion out there to approve, as staff recommends, to make the change to the zoning.
Second.
Public comments on the motion.
Do a roll call vote.
All right, Mr. Conrad.
No.
Yes. Yay.
This is a hard one. I'm going to vote yes, because I'm assuming we will take care of this in the future so that we are not overwhelmed here. So I will, so the motion passes.
So Scott has to read it in.
He read it at the beginning of quasi judicial. So now we're still in quasi judicial, but we have to start over again.
Madam Chair, we're on our last item, request judicial. This is item 4 on the agenda. This is resolution number 2021-17 V 21-02, which is a resolution of the City Commission serving as the Board of Adjustment of the City of Newberry for approval of a variance petition as authorized under Section 3.2.5 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for a reduction of the Bartley Lane plat minimum yard setbacks to allow an existing privacy fence and shed as provided for in Section 4.2.4 on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, repealing all resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time will be to pass resolution number 2021-17 as read by title only.
Madam Chair, this application is for the variance request that's before you, as described in your packet. This is Lot 3. You can see the property outlined in part of the Bartley Lane subdivision. It's a request by Donald Long to allow for a privacy fence that goes across partly on the front yard and a reduction of the minimum side yard setbacks. And because of the orientation of the home, the lot, as you saw in the aerial that's in your packet, you can't have a shed or anything located practically in that rear yard, in the backyard of that property. So you'll see on the, it's really evident on the aerial view, if you can see on that, see where the property is there on the corner. It is facing, well, the 4th Lane, but it also is on that corner where you see on the cul-de-sac street. So it's on the cul-de-sac and on 4th Lane. Originally was planned to have the front door, the front on where you see the cul-de-sac, so you see where 258th is. You can see where there's like the sidewalk coming from the front of the house. Originally it was planned to be on that location. Then you can see that there might make sense that way, but the address was shifted by the builder towards the end of their process to front on 4th Lane, so that the front door and the garage was moved to that front area. So it actually would be on 4th Lane. So if you look at that, the property on the east side. It's actually, that is their side yard. And if you look to the south, where their rear yard is, where their backyard is, there's not much room. So their front yard, which is facing 4th Lane on the north, actually, there's not much room. So you've got the front where the fence is there, it goes a little bit across that front yard, and then the actual shed is there in the northeast corner. So the recommendation of staff is to allow that to stay there because you don't have a backyard that is usable on this property. You know that the burden of that hardship that's required for you to grant a variance is, as long as it is not caused by the actual property owner, then that's something that you can consider. In this case, this was the builder who had done that. It is not something that was done by the actual homeowner, and they did go through all the process to actually have that fence in place in the shed, and it was allowed by the building department, and it's in place. We went through all that approval. So let me let the applicant talk about it a little bit to give his perspective, and let you know that the problem that we see from staff's perspective is that it is, on that aerial, you can see that there's just not the ability to have a backyard that's going to be usable. It will end up being in your side yard.
Madam Chair.
We're all off now.
I know that we swore in everybody when we did this one, but I don't believe we did ex parte for this one. So can we quickly just make sure we get it is quiz HID again. So.
Good evening, board members. This actual issue was put into place when I bought the property in 2018. I was requesting about getting the shed put on my property. Prior to buying the shed, I was informed that I did need a permit by the shed company, but being my first time buying this home, I went through the process to see about getting a permit. I told the building department about where I wanted to put the fence and making sure I was within the setback lines. So when I put that together, they told me we don't call you or inform you of any other issue, then you would be good to go. So this has been about 2 years ago, so I assumed I was good to go. So prior to getting a notice a few weeks ago, I was informed that my fence couldn't be in front, which I never really was explained what's the front side or the back with the way that yard is shaped. So I went ahead with the requirements to be within the setback lines to put the fence up. So the shed and the fence is within those guidelines. So I was informed that I was good to go based off going through the permit process. And being my first time, I really wasn't sure if I was doing everything correctly, but I went ahead with it. And before I even put the fence and shed it in place, so.
Thank you.
Where am I?
Back at the
Staff report.
So staff's recommendation is for approval of the resolution in this particular situation, in that reducing the Bartley Lane plat minimum setback to allow for the shed to remain and the fence to remain as currently constructed, that the applicant would have to still obtain all necessary permits, any after the fact or something. The issue here is something must have gotten mixed up with originally when it was getting permitted. It was noticed, I guess, by our codes enforcement that they needed to get a permit, and it showed that it hadn't been closed out. So our feeling is that the applicant did everything in his power to do the correct thing, and there is a definite issue with the lot layout and how it's configured. It is, I believe is there a picture of the home in your packet that shows the home and the kind of how it sits, and it's just a shame that it had to happen, so.
Madam Chair, we've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, so that's going to move us to public comment, and then we will go down to any cross-examinations.
Cross-examine anybody? Staff, the board?
That'll take us to members' decision-making body. Ask questions.
Decision-making body. Any members of the board here have any questions for the staff, the applicant, or participants?
I do. The only question I've got is so I'm looking in here in the packet just to make sure. I know in the title, it's side setback from 10 to 3 feet for the entire property. In your recommendation here, it's only on the east side. I just want to make sure that if we approve it as written, that we make sure to note that it's for just the east side, because we've had the conversation before about the potential issues for access for the fire department.
Right,
If
it
it's
should
2
just
feet
go
on
to
both
2.
sides, then we would limit their access on the west side of the house.
That's correct. We will check that on the variance, on the resolution, to make sure that is correct. It does have findings and conditions which are, that weren't reflected up here, but you have them in your packet, in your resolution, and it will need to say the correct information for Lot 3 and just on that east side.
That's all I have.
Goodness gracious, Kevin.
Oh.
Now that everybody's awake.
Mr. Conrad? It is, so, and normally a fence would not be permitted. A privacy fence is the issue, that you don't have a privacy fence typically in your front yard. It's just the way it's configured. Yeah. So the main thing for this variance would be just to allow the fence and the shed to remain.
Two-part question. So, fence in the front part of the fence is inside the setback. The side part is outside of the setback. I think it's okay. I think but then the issue is the shed is over the setback. And did I hear you say the shed was permitted by our building department?
The shed, that's our understanding, that it initially did have a permit applied, but they did not follow up with it. But Mr. Long has indicated, in other words, they didn't get the actual final permit inspection, and they didn't get the final thing. But
Did he provide a plat to our site diagram, our building department, saying, I want to put my shed here, and we gave him a permit?
Yes. so
that he did, yeah.
I presented them my survey, and I told them exactly where I wanted to put it, so I made sure I was in the proper guidelines, and they informed me that.
Sir, I'm sorry, you got to come up to the mic. We got to get it on record.
I'm sorry. So I went through the process, and I showed them exactly where I wanted to put it and where was I allowed to put it, and they said just pull the permit, and no one informed me. They said if anybody contacts you, I will come out and prove it. You're good to go. I never heard anything, so I assumed I was good to go. I purchased the shed, then put the fence around the shed.
How many years ago?
2000. Well, the shed and fence was 2019. I purchased 2018.
I would think, Wendy, if we gave him a permit, he provided a picture saying he's gonna put it there, then that's on us.
He made an application, but he was not, they didn't do the final inspection. He didn't get the final, he didn't do, but they apparently,
When they gave him, when he paid his $200, they gave
yeah, I
him
don't,
a permit, said you put your shed here, he acted in good faith and put his shed there.
well, because we don't have that staff here and we don't have records, so I don't,
Well, the
Sounds like that's why the recommendation is for approval.
yes,
Yeah.
correct.
We should have given him a permit.
Applicant shall obtain does he have to redo more permits?
Well, I paid for the initial permits, and that was all I was informed of.
Because my concern is now we're going back to the applicant asking, hey, we need you to, and that's the last thing is a mistake followed by he's being charged now for more.
Yeah.
That's why we're here tonight, is to just
I just
make
wanna
it right.
sure that he's like clear of any.
Gavin asked a question with his, so he's asking what permits does he
We'll
need to
just
go
make
back?
sure that the permit is
retro.
actually issued, so that there will be documentation. They'll inspect it and make sure that that's finalized. Once the variance is granted, then they'll make sure that, from the building department standpoint, that everything's fine, help with anything.
So now we're asking for a motion. Remember that we want to make sure that the motion clarifies the east side language that was brought up earlier. I'm not sure if Scott was in the room
I
for
think
that
it
language.
is written that way, so I'll make a motion to approve as written that the side setback be changed from 10 to 2 feet on the east side of Lot 3.
Do we need anything to protect that shed?
We need a second before the motion
Or I
dies.
second it. I have a question on the motion though. Is there, just so it could prevent further headaches or anything for Mr. Long having to come back all of a sudden, Mayor Conrad brought up the point of the shed. Is there a possibility that we need to motion that the shed be part of that setback as well?
Oh, it is in the
It
conditions.
is? Okay,
It-
okay,
yeah.
I'm just making, I wanna make sure he doesn't
Yes,
have to worry.
right.
Janine, I think all of our mics are off.
No, I'm
Oh,
on.
just yours is off. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We have some very avid viewers tonight, letting me know.
Dude, man, we got-
Did we,
We have a
Get
motion
our
from
motion?
Board Member Gavin, a second from Naeem. Questions on the motion?
questions? Anybody? Question?
Public questions?
Public questions?
All in favor?
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
And now back to-
Sorry for making you wait so long to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm not in a hurry.
That
We
never
appreciate your
pays
patience.
around here.
This is my first time, so I didn't mind the wait.
Well, come back anytime. It's a good place to be.
Will do. Appreciate you.
You'll know more about your city.
I like the changes though.
All right, number 5.
Feedback to the Newberry Community Redevelopment Agency regarding the draft on Community Redevelopment Plan. The Community Redevelopment Plan addresses the unique needs of the targeted area and includes overall goals and initiatives for redevelopment in the area, as well as identifying specific potential projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Mike New. I'm the city manager, and I am pitch hitting tonight for Planning and Economic Development Director Brian Thomas, who I must confess has a lot more expertise than I do on this, but Brian has had a family emergency. This is a pretty important topic for us to keep moving along. So, and hopefully in almost 7 years of working on the CRA since I've been here, a lot of Brian's expertise has rubbed off on me, so I will lead us through tonight's presentation. I would say that this has been on my to-do list for 7 years. When I was hired here, a certain commission and mayor at the time informed me that this had been on the city's to-do list since 1999. So we are now 22 years, but we have the goal line in sight. We are inside the 10, and Coach Spurrier just drew up a touchdown winning play, so we're just about to punch this thing across, assuming we can get all of our necessary approvals moving forward. Tonight, the recommended action is to receive a presentation about our CRA plan and to recommend approval of the draft plan to the, it says to the CRA, but I think they mean to the City Commission, which sits
Right.
as our CRA. So as you know, I think Brian and our planning department have indicated to you many times that a CRA is is a district that is developed by MAP that is a special taxing district through a concept known as tax increment financing, and an agreement between a city and a county to take those tax dollars generated in the TIF, tax increment financing district, and reserve them to be utilized within that district for infrastructure projects. And so sounds like something that'd be easy to do in less than 22 years. But as I mentioned before, it takes two parties, a city and a county. And we were the 4th or 5th city to get out of the gate wanting CRAs in Alachua County. And our predecessors burned a few bridges, and we found an unwilling partner. And there's been a lot of years of negotiating with Alachua County to get them comfortable with this CRA plan. I think they are. A year or so ago, they entered into an agreement with the city to develop this CRA plan. That's included in an attachment. So as I mentioned, we're down to the finish line. Our staff has developed a draft CRA redevelopment plan. This is a plan that will work for, that will be in place for 20 years, that outlines how our city can expend its CRA dollars, what the rules of conduct are within the CRA. And start with slide number 1 here is just explaining what a CRA is. I think this is a second or third presentation, so I'll kind of move along. These are the steps in obtaining a CRA process. The first step you see up there has already been completed with our city commission, have adopted a finding of necessity. The next step is for us to develop and adopt a community redevelopment plan. That is the plan that you have before you, which just addresses the unique needs of our targeted area. We have about a 1 square mile area outlined in our downtown district, which is about 2% of our overall city that we have targeted for redevelopment. And then the last objective would be to create a redevelopment trust fund. Last thing we do, once this plan leaves the Planning and Zoning Board, it goes to the City Commission for comment, and then goes to the County Board of County Commissioners, Alachua County Board of County Commissioners, and our City Commission for approval. We have put together this redevelopment plan, and we've discussed tax increment financing. There's a whole slide that tells you in very specific terms what tax increment financing is. But essentially, we will freeze the property value for every property in this district for its ability to generate general fund tax revenues. And every year when a property increases in its tax value, that incremental increase then goes into the CRA. So if you own a property in the CRA, and I believe that you do, I thought that, okay, so it got left out. But if you own a property and your taxes that you pay to the city of Newberry every year is $100, then the base year would be set at, we're hoping for an early base year, let's just say 2020. In 2021, if all things remain the same and your property increases by 1.5%, and next year, instead of $100, you're going to provide $101.50. General fund gets the $100, the $1.50 goes into this tax incremental financing. And at the end of 20 years, that increment is much more. So the city will continue to get the $100 base level. The county will continue to get its base level. The incremental increase goes into this special fund that allows to be those funds that then used within the district for projects to redevelop the district. And you have a question?
Yeah. Does the city get the whole increment, or do we get some percentage of it in the county?
The city gets the whole increment, and it's whatever the incremental difference is in assessed value is multiplied times our millage rate, which currently is 5.999. The county matches that up to our millage rate. So if our millage rate goes up to the county's rate, which is 8 and some change, then we'll see 8 mills from both boards. I don't see that happening, but as it stands now, the county will match us dollar for dollar. The other CRAs in Alachua County the county matches at their topped-out millage rate. So if you're in Gainesville, Gainesville has 4 mills that they're contributed to the CRA, and Alachua County is contributing 8 mills, which is a sore point for Alachua County. So that ours looks different. That was the only way the county commission was going to execute that agreement, and it is fair. So they're matching 1 for 1, not 2 for 1.
If I can ask a quick question on that?
Sure, of course you can.
Is there an, taxes to me is a very, very bad word. As I sit up here, is there gonna be an increase to the residents? Is this like an additional to what?
Absolutely not, and I should have led with that.
Okay.
The
then
beauty
that's
of
my
tax
concern.
increment financing is it's not an additional tax on anybody. You pay your existing taxes the way you always have.
Okay.
The way the tax increment financing works is the every year increase that a property value has, it's up to 3% by state law. Any additional revenues that the city would see going into our general fund, we don't. It goes into the CRA form for the life of the CRA.
And then the other question is that you brought it up, you pointed and saying, I believe that you live in there. I don't live in that line that you built out. My concern is that you're leaving out a nice chunk of 70-something homes, plus the homes on the south, plus all of Countryway, all of Newberry Corners, and all the development we just approved near Champions Park. That's revenue for...
Potentially. But the district is negotiated. The objective of the district is that it takes in blighted area. And when you're a subdivision that's 5 years old, it's hard to make a case that it's a blighted area. Okay. So when we were negotiating with Alachua County, they look at your subdivision and say that's a brand new subdivision, and they won't do it. Now, 10 years ago, when it was the abandoned PVC pipe plant, it would have been the ideal location, but we didn't have a CRA approved then. It got left out of the map.
So it can be added to this?
You can change the limits of the map, but the only way that it could be added to the district is for us and the county agree that your subdivision is a blighted neighborhood. And it's just going to be a long time before we could get there.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the map has been set at this point. We've passed that
Correct.
step.
Correct. The map has been set. So moving on to what we're really here to discuss. Yes?
Well, I was just going to sit on the county's economic development board. We routinely rejected any big CRAs because that's more of the county's money that they're having.
Correct.
It has to be a very small, well-defined area.
Correct.
Where you intend to do some upgrades.
And at 1 square mile, we think it is a small, well-defined area. I know at one time, when we would show our district, we would blow it up and show it would be the whole sheet of paper, and that freaked the county out. So what we then began doing was showing our city limits and the CRA inside of it, and they said, oh, it's just that little area within your city limits. Yes, it's just that small area within our city limits. Absolutely. Correct. No, sir, the brown boundary is actually the historic district. It's not relevant to the CRA, it just must have been on the layer that we took that snapshot from.
Is there a reason then that we would capture all of this vacant land that has a lower income from tax that will be developed versus capturing the older, already developed neighborhoods?
Well, this is an area that Brian is particularly skilled at addressing, but in an analysis of what makes CRAs work, if CRAs only work on the increment of tax, if you can't find some get it started property, vacant land to jump in there that has an immediate increase, it's hard to generate enough revenue to get things going. And the whole key to a successful CRA is you develop some momentum and then you get a lot of private investment in the same district. So within Alachua County, there are a couple of very successful CRAs in downtown Gainesville. Alachua's has been very successful, and High Springs has been successful as well. They all have an element of vacant, and that's part of the negotiation with the county. They're pretty against that. You have to work very hard to move to get them to agree. So they've They cut out a lot of what we would have proposed, but we were able to leave this because we did show that some of the areas that are shown here as vacant do have some blighted development in there. There may be a mobile home or something, and they allowed us to keep that on our map. Yes, sir.
Is the revenue stream bondable? If we borrow the money up front and use that as a repayment?
Absolutely, and that is traditionally what happens. You will use the revenue being generated as pledge for a bond payment. That'll allow you to get out the gate and make a big splash early.
Like 30 years worth of money up front
And
spend it on something.
in our case, 20 years, because this is a 20-year agreement. Again, that was a county initiative. They felt like that 30 and 40 years was too long. So we have less match money. We have a shorter term. We're going to have to be more efficient with the rollout of our CRA than Gainesville and some of the other communities have. So you've seen the map, and that's in the plan. Also in the plan is the interlocal agreement, but the real focus tonight is on this plan, and staff's recommended action is approval of the draft plan for the CRA. I would tell you that the CRA, this plan is the most important element to the CRA. Once we get it approved, we cannot do anything with the funds from the CRA that are not addressed in this plan. So we've been very comprehensive, and we will tell you coming out of the gate that there's a high likelihood that we can't do everything in the plan. But what we didn't want to do was leave something out that we might want to do, or a board 10 or 15 years from now might want to do, and then say it's not in the plan and be forbidden from using it. So we've taken a very broad look at what could be in the plan, and our current commission has very strong ideas about what they will do. Probably the most significant thing that was excluded from the plan was on that vacant parcel there that you see up near Hitchcock's. The county forbid us from using CRA funds to put in infrastructure on the private property side of it. So we couldn't put in water and sewer for private development there, which would have never been our intention. It was kind of an easy thing for our board to agree to. So there are some prohibitions, but for the most part, it's a very broad plan, mainly focused on infrastructure, but the commission has indicated an interest in doing some facade grants and some beautification type grant programs on private property that would also help address blight and move our CRA in a positive direction. So the goals of the CRA plan are listed in front of you. These are not new goals just for the city of Newberry. These are common in every CRA plan that you would ever see. The specific address on each of the goals, though, is unique to Newberry. So, and within each of those goals, let me back up real quick. So you can see there are 8 goals. And then within each of the goals is a more specific bullet point about what we mean by economic development. Those also are included. I think these are in section 4 of your plan. These are the very specific, unique items to the city of Newberry. And we're continuing with economic development, infrastructure. You can see things like street paving, resurfacing, infrastructure improvements, sidewalk swells, things of that nature, improving parking in the district. Affordable housing commission, when they spoke to that one, wasn't exactly sure how to do it, but they know that affordable housing is an important component of a blighted area, and felt like it was important for staff to include that. And if something comes up during the period of the CRA where we could utilize it as a tool, it would be there. Streetscaping projects, historic preservation, and parks and public spaces. A CRA utilizing parks and public spaces or historic preservation are ideal opportunities to leverage CRA funds against some of the more common grants that's out there. State of Florida runs 2 grant programs for historic preservation. They also run FERDAP grants for parks, and the county has their wild spaces, public spaces. So those opportunities may be to again leverage or utilize funds from a number of different pools to move a project forward.
Madam Chair. Mike, before you move on, I just want everybody to take a second to read that list of projects under the parks and public spaces. And it's not just to point out the splash park that is there, but, you know, there was a lot of conversation on the commission that a lot of these things are already covered in the other categories, arguably, but we wanted to make sure that they were specified and it wouldn't be an argument later on. So if there's anything that's not on that list that you think, well, I would assume that would have been covered in infrastructure, or I would assume that would have been covered in marketing, so I didn't bring it up. If it's a specific targeted project, like a splash park, like a skate park, like Rails and Trails, our preference would be let's list it here.
Absolutely.
So that we don't have to get into an argument 10 years from now when we're building something and say, well, you can't use CRA money for that. And we say, well, that's an infrastructure, right? Or that's no, you just want to be able to point it out. So I know that it's getting late in the evening and I hate to ask us to slow down on this, but we added a couple of things in the conversation, and I think every time we kind of look over the list and have that talk, somebody comes up with, well, what about, I had a meeting today that discussed the ability of a trolley to get back and forth from Champions Park to, it may not be a trolley, it may be something else, but some sort of transportation might be something that we'd want to add into that, and I'll let Mike wordsmith that for me when we're not all really tired tomorrow, but something like that may be an idea. So if you have it, and you don't have to have it now, if you think something hits you in 5 minutes, just say, hey, throw that on the list, I'll say.
And to the mayor's point, this is not fixed tonight. If we get a recommendation to approve and you have a chance to read this deeper during the week, send something in to Brian or me and say, I thought about adding this. We'll present it to our commission. After our commission blesses it, it's still not final. When it goes to a joint meeting with the county, that's when the plan would be finalized, and we will probably be adding it up to the 11th hour of that, making sure that we've covered all our bases. We do not want to bind a commission CRA board 15 years from now just because we said, oh no, planning and zoning saw it 2 weeks before it was finalized, and we didn't want to add, to the mayor's point, downtown trolley that might move people in our very hardy restaurant district.
Kind of like the wild spaces, public places list. You put everything on there you could possibly want. And
yeah, I believe Brian told me that the list of projects that we've identified potentially is in the $15 to $20 million range, and our revenue projections are in the $1.8 to $2 million range. They're conservative, so we realize that we can't do everything in here. We just want to make sure that we have the ability to do the things that a future CRA board and commission want to do. And thank you for slowing that down. That's a great point, Mr. Mayor.
Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
I can never remember the name of the place, but it's in Alachua. It's way on out towards Legacy. Was that built also? I know Alachua has used some of these funds. Is that how they got that? That's a beautiful facility, by the way.
Mike doesn't know too much about the city of Alachua.
Yeah, I'm just going to stretch.
They have no palm trees there.
Legacy Park was built out of city coffers and out of Wild Spaces Public Places.
Okay.
That park is
I'm
not
just
within
curious.
their CRA, and there's no CRA funding in there.
Oh, beautiful then.
Any other questions
I have a
about the
question
list?
for you. My only involvement with the CRA in Gainesville was our firm did the brokerage and leasing for a building that I think the Gainesville CRA built. And that's what I'm in here looking for, is what abilities we have to use the CRA money for development, because my experience there was that that building was overbuilt, money was overspent, and in my opinion, the money could have been used elsewhere for the public. And it was built, I think, to kind of try to draw a new office market into their defined CRA district, and it failed for a very long time. So what does this give us the ability to do? Does it give us the ability to spend money if someone in the city in 20 years from now thinks, oh, that's a great site to build an office building, let's build one?
It does. Now, it wouldn't just be somebody in the city, it would be the CRA board, so it would be, currently our CRA board is identified as the city commission. And the sitting commission has indicated that they have no palette for that, but they've also said that they think that 20 years from now, that they should not omit something from the plan that they don't have a palette for, that future commission might. So, but to kind of piggyback on what you've said, what you have identified as something that we have seen, and I have seen in larger CRAs like Gainesville that are generating that type of income. What I've seen smaller cities like a Hawthorne, an Alachua, High Springs, they rarely generate those types of revenues. So staff's entire experience with CRAs is more on public infrastructure, streetscaping, road reconstruction, utility type projects. And our commission has said that's our palette, that's what we're interested in. But 15 years from now, we don't know. I think it would just be incumbent upon staff to make sure that if such a project were to catch the fancy of a city commission, that they were well advised on what the potential downfalls are. And maybe all of us need to be watching those agenda items 20 years from now to make sure that if something like that pops up on the CRA's agenda, that we get in here and we offer our public feedback.
Sure. I guess my feedback would be that my preference would be that the money be able to be used for the promotion of commercial development, but only through incentives, not that the commission put on their developer hat and now becomes a commercial developer to use the public money to do so.
We will make that comment, make sure the commission is advised of it whenever they're seeing this. That there's a lot of sense, and I think that the current way of thinking, both at staff and the commission, they agree with that sentiment. At the last meeting this was discussed, our board said we hate to tie the hands of a future commission, but I have seen our board say that we just need to do that because we feel that strongly about it. So thank you for that good feedback. Any other thoughts on this slide? I'm ready to move on. All right, so continue on with the presentation, and we're kind of getting to the end of the presentation. So here are just some examples. Here's some mural wall art that another community has utilized their CRA dollars for. I don't think our commission necessarily has expressed an interest in this, but that's how these communities have done actually quite a few slides on just that. So let's see where we are. Okay, so these are kind of more common, these waypoint signs. That's not the technical name for them. They are called, directional, tourist-oriented directional sign, TODs. And so it's kind of like picking street lights in your downtown district. You'll pick a theme of sign, and then you'll see it carried out through monument signs, through your banner systems and things of that nature. And there's been a lot of conversation in Newberry about tourist-oriented directional signage. I think Main Street took it on as a project at one time. CRAs do that, but they're not exclusive to CRAs because CRAs are a finite district and TODs can become community-wide. I know when I'm in the St. Augustine area, they're from Ponte Vedra Beach all the way down to Crescent Beach. It's the same theme of TOD. So, but it's a what you could do. More TODs. See what else we have. And then potential work and program areas. These are within economic development. These are actually what the City Commission and our team have identified as ways that we could spend that money. So right off the bat, speaks to Board Member Johnson's thoughts about offering incentives, but not necessarily putting on the developer cap. Although it does, I see a bullet down there. That second to last bullet is the development. Oh, it just says an inventory. It doesn't say become the owner of these buildings. So we would facilitate redevelopment in this area through incentives, but not necessarily try to put on the developer hat ourselves, as I read this.
I mean, to me that reads develop commercial buildings. You take out the...
Well, it says develop and maintain an inventory.
Vacant, so develop and maintain vacant land in commercial buildings.
Just the inventory.
It should be the list. I guess we need to clarify that because when you said inventory, you think that's owning 6 vacant parcels or buildings, and I think it's the list, and I think it's intended to be the list, maintain a list, and I think we'll clarify that. It's a great point.
I think the other, idea there, and we did spend some time talking about this as well. We've had a lot of, I don't say a lot, we've had 3 or 4 major developments that have kind of fallen off because people get wind that it's a CVS, and then all of a sudden they triple how much they want, and CVS has to buy 3 or 4 little parcels to put them together, and CVS doesn't want to, it's just too much work for them to do it. They'll skip and go to some other community. And so one of the things that was presented to us is that you could, if you ended up in a situation where you had a highly marketable corner of your downtown, but it was broken up into an 1/8 of an acre lot here and a 3/4 acre lot there, you could use that to consolidate and then turn right back around and say, okay, here at CVS, and then you recoup the money or make a profit off of the money. And then that could go kind of both ways. And so there was a little bit of concern there, but that was the idea behind that bullet, was not that anyone would buy commercial buildings or build commercial buildings, but it was, we'll clarify, we want to keep the list, and we just had a meeting today. Tell me all the vacant land you have on 26. I want to buy it right now. Like, you know, and it was, okay, here you go. We keep a list of every single property that's for sale in this area, that kind of a thing.
Thank you. So, so that's the economic development work plan. Here's some, how a facade grant has been utilized in some communities to, they actually removed some steel siding and put an awning up to change the character of this particular facility. Toccoa, Georgia. More facade grants that totally change the look of your downtown area. Paint in a facade grant. Remove an old shingle. Well, it's not old. It's actually a new shingle awning, and replace it with something that's more period-like. So that is that same slide again, and that completes the presentation that Brian put together. So back to the staff's recommendation, which is all the way at the beginning, is to recommend approval of the CRA plan to the city commission, right there, or to the CRA, which sits as the city commission. Any questions?
Yeah, a motion from Bill. While the chair is chewing, we have a motion from Board Member Bill and a second by Naeem.
Comments? Public, we have none.
Warm out.
Warm, we won. So, we need to vote on approving or not, as the case may be.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
So, who's in favor of going ahead with this? I wouldn't want to tell Mike we're not going to. Aye. Nice presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
all
actually
of you,
Brian's
for all of your
presentation.
hard
I'm
work.
just pinch hitting for him tonight.
And this has been part of the Vision Committee also?
It has been part of the vision committee.
Yeah,
I think it was
and-
part of the last 3 or 4 vision.
It absolutely was.
Yeah, and I,
Previous mayor told me this was all teed up and it was a slam dunk.
really?
And he really told me that. It didn't work
Well,
out
he
quite
should
that way.
know.
He,
He knows everything, that's
the
just why.
county just wasn't being cooperative. It should have been easy. So thank you all, really appreciate your time.
Members for topic discussion.
Members, do you have any topics for discussion? No. Bill? Jane? I do. I certainly do. I want to let all of you know that between the Garden Club, Newberry Garden Club, with our 30 or 40 members, and the Newberry Watermelon Festival, with their 7 people that put the show on, we put $4,000 into scholarships for Newberry High School graduating seniors this year. It is amazing when you think of how many people are involved. It really is, but good job. And it's a good cause.
I want to thank, actually, our step-in vice chair here. You did a phenomenal job today. Thank you so much for leading the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Bang that gavel.
Let's go home. You know what I have? I have